Chapter 1280. Just as Xiao Hua was immersed in his thoughts, struggling with the dilemma of whether to tell the sect leader or not, he suddenly heard someone shouting in the air not far away, "You brat, who are you?" Xiao Hua was slightly taken aback. After hearing this, he very naturally replied, "Me? Of course it's Xiao." Before the name Xiao Hua could leave his mouth, Xiao Hua came to his senses and almost jumped up in the air. He stretched out his arm and pointed at the 2 5th-layer qi refining cultivators flying over. "This is my Shunghua underworld's territory. Who do you think you are?" he scolded. "What qualifications do you have to ask for my I's name?" But then, Xiao Hua's eyes turned, and he somewhat came to his senses. He lowered his voice and cupped his hands, saying, "Fellow Taoists, could it be that you've come to Shonghua Ming to pay a visit to my sect master?" Shonghua Ming? Sect master? The two cultivators were stunned. They glanced at each other in amazement, then vigilance appeared on their faces. One of them stretched out his hand and took out a summoning talisman from his bosom. With a burst of magic power, the summoning talisman flew away. The other person laughed disdainfully, saying, "A second-layer qi refining junior dares to loot a burning house at Yellowflower Ridge? Don't tell me you don't want to live anymore." Then he said to the person next to him, "Is there a need to send a message for this kind of thing? Just directly kill him. The young sect master has ordered that all abnormalities should be reported. Junior martial brother, don't make a mistake." That person didn't agree, but his movements weren't slow either. He unfolded the yellow talisman in his hand and swiftly flew towards Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua was furious. This was his, Shonghua Ming's, territory. Others actually said he came to loot a burning house. How could he tolerate this kind of thing? With a wave of his hand, he also took out a fireball talisman. However, just as he was about to activate the flying talisman to attack, his heart suddenly stirred. Young sect master? Then, he looked again. Of course, these two people were dressed in 100 Herbs sect's attire. They were the same people he saw at Medicine Farmer Peak. "Your 100 Herbs sect's disciples? Where is Jiang Fan? Why are you showing off in my, Shonghua Ming's, territory?" Xiao Hua stopped and gripped the fireball talisman in his hand. He coldly stared at the 2 5th-level qi refining disciples who were flying much slower than him. "You also know that Yellowflower Ridge is now the territory of my 100 Herbs sect? Now you know the name of our young master." The 200 Herbs Gate disciples sneered. "Since you know, you still want to take advantage of the situation? Isn't it too late to find out now? Yellowflower Ridge is now your 100 Herbs Gate's territory." When Xiao Hua heard this, he became anxious and immediately asked, "Where is my Shonghua Ming's gate master? Where are my eldest senior brother, second senior brother and senior sister?" "Oh, that's right. Didn't my senior sister accept the invitation of your 100 Herbs Gate's young master Jiang En and go to your medicinal farmer peak? My eldest senior brother and second senior brother went to send him off, and they haven't returned since last night." Ayo. I understand now. Your 100 Herbs Gate actually plotted to kill my senior brother and senior sister, and then killed your way into my Yellowflower Ridge." When he thought of this, Xiao Hua's face became as cold as ice. However, he didn't use the fireball talisman. Since 100 Herbs Gate had already taken over this place, they definitely had more disciples than these two. If he attacked, he'd have to wait until he had the confidence to escape. "Ayo, you're really Shonghua Ming's disciple?" The 100 Herbs Gate disciple was also stunned, his face full of shock. "But I heard the young master say that Shonghua Ming's gate master and 2 of his disciples have already died. He didn't say there were any survivors." "Ah, gate master and senior brothers, they're already gone." When Xiao Hua heard that the gate master and 2 of his senior brothers had already died, his heart was filled with grief. Just now, he had made the most extreme guess, but he never thought that 3 living people would completely disappear in a single night. When he heard this, his body unconsciously swayed in the air, and the gate master's generosity and his 2 senior brothers' closeness immediately appeared before his eyes. 3 years of happiness with Shonghua Ming flashed before his eyes like a merry-go-round, and Xiao Hua unconsciously bit his lips tightly. Seeing Xiao Hua so sad, the 100 Herbs Gate disciple was even more convinced. After hesitating for a moment, he probed, "Little brother, don't be sad, Fairy Xiao is still alive." "Ah, senior sister is still alive." Hearing that his senior sister was actually still alive, Xiao Hua was pleasantly surprised and hurriedly said, "Senior brothers, please." At this point, Xiao Hua's heart trembled. "I, Shang Huaming, am weak and only have 5 people. The gate master and 2 of my senior brothers have all died, so I, Shang Huaming, can be considered to have been destroyed. I'm the only one left in the gate master. No, I haven't been accepted into Shang Huaming's sect, so I can't be considered his disciple. To be honest, Shang Huaming only has senior sister as his only descendant. First of all, senior sister has some feelings for the 100 Herbs Gate's young master. After Shang Huaming was destroyed, she was all alone and had no one to rely on. Who knows, she might walk together with Jiang Fan. Besides, the 100 Herbs Gate came in large numbers. Needless to say, they're definitely using the banner of my Shang Huaming's alliance to occupy Yellow Flower Ridge. Just based on this, senior sister's life is in danger." Thinking about his experience from Yellow Flower Ridge to Medicine Gnome Peak, Xiao Hua shuddered a little. Then he thought of Shang Huaming's inexplicable disaster falling from the sky, and had a deeper understanding of the life and death struggle in the cultivation world. After some thought, he made a plan in his heart. Xiao Hua cupped his hands and said, "I wonder when senior sister Xiao will return from Medicine Gnome Peak to Yellow Flower Ridge." Fairy Xiao returned more than a month ago. The 100 Herbs Gate disciples were almost certain that Xiao Hua was Shang Huaming's disciple. Besides, he was only in the 2nd layer of the aura refining realm, so the 2 5th layer aura refining disciples didn't take him seriously at all. They casually said, "It was our young master who sent Fairy Xiao back." It was precisely because young master encountered this matter that the gate master sent Elder Xing to bring us here, to help. The disciple looked at Xiao Hua and actually changed the last 2 words to help, causing Xiao Hua to feel a burst of disgust. "Hey! More than a month ago?" Xiao Hua felt disgust, but he didn't feel surprised. In his memory, he had fallen into a coma because he encountered Little White's tribulation last night. He thought he was only unconscious for 1 night, but he didn't expect it to be for 30 days. "That's right, junior brother. Our 100 Herbs Gate has already been in Yellow Flower Ridge for dozens of days and searched this place for a long time, but we didn't find any traces of living people. Junior brother, where did you go?" a 100 Herbs Gate disciple asked. This. Xiao Hua hesitated slightly. Just as he was about to speak, he saw several figures rapidly flying over from the direction of Mindless Worship Peak. Before the person in the lead arrived, a rough voice sounded. "Where did this brat come from? Don't you know how powerful our 100 Herbs Gate is?" "Hey!" When the crowd flew closer, they saw a pale, young man, and his cultivation was pitifully low. They couldn't help but be stunned. "It's this person? Martial uncle, this person says he's Shang Huaming's disciple," one of the 100 Herbs Gate disciples said in a low voice. "How is that possible? Aside from Xiao Shenrue, all of Shang Huaming's people are already dead." The rough voice belonged to a dark-skinned man about 40 years old. He waved his hand in disbelief. At this moment, a disciple behind this person flew a few steps forward and whispered a few words in his ear. Xiao Hua looked. This disciple seemed to be the one who gave him the withered seed. "Hey, is that so? Are you sure?" Martial Uncle Xing, who was at the 11th level of Qi refining, glared at the disciple. The disciple was clearly stunned, and stammered, This disciple saw him at Medicine Farmer Peak, but I can't be sure." Xiao Hua's heart thumped, and his eyes began to scan his surroundings. He believed that if this martial Uncle Xing had any ill intentions towards him, he should be able to escape with his speed. With his understanding of the terrain of Yellow Flower Ridge, he should be able to escape with his life. However, in his heart, he still wanted to see Xiao Shenrue again. He wanted to see if this unfortunate senior sister of his was still alive. Seeing that the disciple's tone had changed, Martial Uncle Xing's eyes narrowed. However, when he saw that Xiao Hua was only at the 2nd level of Qi refining, he frowned and looked at him for a while, as if thinking about something. Xiao Hua's heartstrings were taut. He was just waiting for him to make any strange movements and escape. Martial Uncle Xing sighed softly in his heart, waved his hand, and said to the disciple next to him, "Since he's Shang Huaming's disciple, take him to the young master." At this moment, the young master is accompanying Xiao Shenrue, at the back mountain of Mindless Worship Peak. The disciple who had spoken just now glanced at Martial Uncle Xing and cupped his hands. This disciple obeys. Then, he flew in front of Xiao Hua and said coldly, "Let's go, follow me." Xiao Hua's heart chilled. He had already cursed the 100 Herbs Gate in his heart. This is the back mountain of Mindless Worship Peak. Do I need you to lead the way? However, he still smiled and cupped his hands. "Thank you for your trouble, senior brother." The disciple glanced at him again and seemed to be very dissatisfied with the way he was addressed. However, in front of everyone, he didn't say anything and flew away. Xiao Hua cupped his hands at Martial Uncle Xing and the others, then slowed down. Like a second-level Qi refining disciple, he slowly flew towards Mindless Worship Peak. The place that the disciple was leading him to was none other than Shang Huaming's secret chamber. At this moment, the door to the secret chamber was wide open, and a yellow talisman was stuck in front of the cave, allowing anyone to enter. The disciple flew to the cave and cupped his hands, reporting to the young master, "Shang Huaming found, a living disciple." "Ah?" A cry of surprise came from inside the cave. It was Xiao Shenrue's voice. Is it Xiao Hua?" The first voice was still in the cave, but when the last word came out, Xiao Shenrue had already rushed out of the secret chamber. Senior sister Tilda Xiao Hua's eyes were filled with tears as he also rushed over. Xiao Shenrue's footsteps were somewhat staggered. She didn't look like a cultivator at all. As soon as she saw Xiao Hua's tall and thin figure and familiar face, she couldn't help but throw herself at him. She had just called out Xiao Hua. When sorrow arose from her heart, and she couldn't help but wail loudly. She threw herself into the arms of her only family member in this world. Xiao Hua was very tall, half a head taller than Gong Mingwei. Xiao Shenrue threw herself into his arms, but she could only touch his chest. Woo-woo! Tilda Xiao Shenrue cried extremely sorrowfully. Her tears flowed out like spring water, and in a moment, the front of Xiao Hua's daoist robe was completely soaked. -5. Chapter 1281. Xiao Hua originally thought that he was strong. When he heard the news of Xiao Yuhong, Gong Mingwei, and Zhong Qingxiao, he wasn't too sad. But now that Xiao Shenrue was crying, he couldn't help it. His tears fell on Xiao Shenrue's hair. In the midst of his tears, Xiao Hua suddenly felt a cold air coming from the front. He was slightly stunned and glanced slightly. Wasn't it the young master of Baikao Gate, Jiang Fan? Xiao Hua thought to himself. Xiao Shenrue was Jiang Fan's sweetheart. At this time, she was crying in his arms. What was this? Although he was Xiao Shenrue's junior brother and was much younger than Xiao Shenrue, but, after all, they weren't related by blood, Xiao Hua's body couldn't help but stiffen. Perhaps because she had cried enough, Xiao Shenrue's soft body seemed to feel Xiao Hua's stiffness and also moved slightly. Xiao Hua barely held back his tears. When he was about to find an excuse, Jiang Fan in front of him said gently, "Sister Rui, cry a little longer. In these dozens of days, except for the first cry, you haven't shed a single tear. I know you've been holding back your grief in your heart and don't want me to see it. Xiao Hua is back, and you're not the only one left from Shang Huaming. You can be considered to have a companion. Cry happily." Brother Fan Tilda hearing this, Xiao Shenrue seemed to be extremely moved. She pushed Xiao Hua away, turned around, and threw herself into Jiang Fan's arms and cried. Xiao Hua looked at her and felt extremely uncomfortable. The mountain wind blew, and the tears on Xiao Hua's chest turned from warm to cold. It was so cold that it reached his heart. But soon, the tears were blown away by the mountain wind, and there were no traces left. After a while, Xiao Hua wiped away the tears in his eyes. He looked up at Jiang Fan, who was holding Xiao Shenrue's waist with one hand and stroking her hair with the other. He smiled and nodded slightly. At this time, Jiang Feng was as handsome as jade, and his eyes were also kind. He also nodded at Xiao Hua. Xiao Shenrue's crying gradually stopped. She struggled out of Jiang Fan's arms and said in a low voice, "Brother Fan, I let you see a joke." "Of course not. To let you cry out all your grief and not turn this tribulation into your heart's demon, this is what I should do. Brother Fan, you're the best." Xiao Shenrue's eyes were filled with gratitude as she forced a smile. "I'm sorry for your loss, Sister Rui. What's done is done. It's useless to think too much about it." Jiang Fan patted Xiao Shenrue's shoulder and said sadly, "Ah, I know," Xiao Shenrue said and turned her head. It wasn't until now that Xiao Hua carefully looked at Xiao Shenrue's face. He saw that in just a month's time, Xiao Shenrue's round face had lost a lot of weight, almost becoming an oval face. She was originally rich, but now she was even more beautiful and poignant. Perhaps it was because she had lost weight, but Xiao Shenrue's eyes had instead become a bit bigger. Her fine black hair was coiled up on her head, and a white flower was slanted into her sideburns. Xiao Hua knew that his senior sister had always liked red, and at this moment, her whole body was covered in white. At first glance, she looked extremely elegant, and even more refreshing than before. "Senior sister, sect master, they." Without waiting for Xiao Shenrue to speak, Xiao Hua asked first. "Alas, come in." Xiao Shenrue's face darkened as she walked into the secret room. "Xiao Hua, where have you been for the past 1 month? We searched the entire Yellow Flower Ridge but couldn't find any trace of you." Without waiting for Xiao Hua to walk, Jiang Fan asked with a smile, his tone full of concern. "Alas, where else could I have gone?" Sect Master said that Junior didn't have enough black tuber grass from young Sect Master Jiang. After Big Senior Brother and Second Senior Brother sent Senior Sister out, Junior was sent to the depths of Yellow Flower Ridge to search for black tuber grass. Young Sect Master knows Junior's cultivation level. There are many ferocious beasts in the depths of Yellow Flower Ridge. Junior didn't dare to go too fast, and could only search carefully. "That's why I was delayed," Xiao Hua said with a smile. "What about the black tuber grass?" Jiang Fan asked again. Young Sect Master, if the black tuber grass was so easy to pick, Junior wouldn't need to go to Yarrow Nong Peak to look for young Sect Master. Because Junior didn't manage to pick it, Junior kept delaying and only returned now. "Oh, right. Junior planted some of the black tuber grass that young Sect Master gave Junior in Shihua Peak's medicine garden. However, Junior's level of planting medicine is limited, so Junior didn't live much." Jiang Fan was skeptical. Looking at Xiao Hua's bald head, he asked curiously, "What's wrong with your hair? It wasn't like this when you were at Yarrow Nong Peak." Xiao Hua's heart thumped, and he smiled apologetically. "Sigh, this Junior was accompanying Sect Master to concoct pills when I accidentally dozed off and was burned by the earth fire. Even though Sect Master heard the news and rushed over, it was still a lot less, so this Junior might as well cut it all off." "Oh, Senior Sister knows about this." Senior Sister didn't tell young Sect Master? That day, Second Senior Brother laughed at Junior a lot. Speaking of Second Senior Brother, Xiao Hua's voice became lower and lower. Xiao Shenrue was leading the way. When she heard Jiang Fan's question, she first stopped, her face expressionless. When she heard Xiao Hua mention her, she just noticed that Xiao Hua was different. Hearing Xiao Hua mention her, she clenched her teeth and scolded, "A boy refining pills fell asleep while guarding the pill furnace, and you still have the nerve to mention it? How could I mention this to others?" "Yes, Senior Sister is right." Seeing Xiao Shenrue help him cover up his lie, Xiao Hua hurriedly said. Jiang Fan frowned slightly, but his face showed that he believed it. After all, the disciples sent by 100 Herbs Gate were arranged around the Great Array, and there weren't many disciples in the depths of Yellow Flower Ridge. If Xiao Hua came from there, it was normal that he wasn't discovered. "Go, Sect Master Xiao and Senior Brother Gong's remains are inside." Jiang Fan sighed and waved his hand. "Huh? Only the remains of 2 people?" Xiao Hua was surprised, but he didn't dare to ask more. When they entered the secret chamber, they saw that it was empty. There were only 3 jade coffins placed on a platform that was half the height of a person. The jade was transparent, and Xiao Hua saw Xiao Yuehong's pale and familiar face in the middle coffin. Xiao Yuehong was wearing a navy blue Taoist robe, and his eyes were closed as if he was sleeping soundly. However, there were faintly visible cracks on his face, and some parts of his face were missing. Indeed, Xiao Yuehong's death was very tragic. Looking at the left side of Xiao Yuehong's coffin, Gong Mingwei was lying there quietly, and he also looked like he was sleeping soundly. There were no fatal wounds. The rightmost coffin was empty, and there was only a Taoist robe inside, sect master. Although Xiao Hua tried to suppress his emotions, he couldn't help but feel sad when he saw that peaceful face. He quickly stepped forward, knelt on the ground, and kowtowed. After he finished kowtowing to the 3 coffins, he pointed to Zhong Qingxiao's empty coffin, turned his head and asked, "Second senior brother's remains, Xiao Hua." Xiao Shenrue's eyes were filled with tears again. She opened her mouth and called out, "Brother Fan, please tell Xiao Hua." Xiao Hua, a month ago, after senior brother Gong and senior brother Zhong sent your senior sister to my medicine farmer peak, they didn't stay in my 100 Herbs Gate for long and immediately returned to Yellow Flower Ridge. And after Sister Rui played in my medicine farmer peak for 2 days, she was sent back to Yellow Flower Ridge by me and my disciples. When we arrived at Yellow Flower Ridge that day, your Shong Huaming's formation didn't have any abnormalities, but Sister Rui's message talisman didn't fly out. We were surprised and followed her into Shong Huaming's formation. There were also no abnormalities at Wanxi Peak, but we couldn't find Sect Master Xiao and the others. In the end, we found senior brother Gong's remains near the left side of Cherishing Flower Peak, as well as the destroyed flying boat. Then, we found senior brother Zhong's torn and blood-stained Taoist robe next to the cold pond. Although senior brother Zhong's remains haven't been found after such a long time, I'm afraid that he fell into the cold pond and was washed away by the water. Then, second senior brother may not have fallen. Xiao Hua had a glimmer of hope in his heart. Xiao Hua, I also hope that senior brother Zhong is alive, but he was with senior brother Gong, and the flying boat was destroyed. Moreover, senior brother Gong's body was killed by an extremely powerful person with a high-level magic art. Do you think senior brother Zhong could have escaped? Jiang Fan said bitterly. Xiao Hua was silent. In his heart, he also knew that to be able to kill Xiao Yuhong and even the little white dragon, this divine ability was absolutely not something that Gong Mingwei and Zhong Qingxiao could contend against. Although he couldn't see Zhong Qingxiao's corpse, she was definitely dead. After taking a look at Xiao Hua, Jiang Fan then points at Xiao Yuehong's remains and says, "After senior martial brother Gong's remains were found, we never found sect leader Xiao's remains. It wasn't until in the end, in the mountain stream between Cherishing Flower Peak and Lone Staff Peak that we found some fragments and pieces of clothing that were scattered there. I asked the sect's foundation establishment elders to cast a spell, and only then was we able to collect sect leader Xiao's scattered remains and piece them together like this." Father. Hearing this, Xiao Shenrue couldn't help crying again. Xiao Hua's tears fell down with a pitter-patter sound. After waiting for Xiao Shenrue to stop crying, Jiang Fan said, "Sister Rui, this is good. You're not the only one in Shong Huaming. With Xiao Hua, you and him can support each other. With the support of our 100 Herbs Gate, Shong Huaming will have a chance to rise again in the future." Thinking of the actions of the 100 Herbs Gate's disciples just now, Xiao Hua's heart was like a mirror. If it weren't for his low cultivation level, which was only at the 2nd level of qi refining, he wouldn't have been able to cause any big waves. Maybe Martial Uncle Xing would have already killed him. Then, Shong Huaming wouldn't have any disciples to meet with Xiao Shenrue and ignite Xiao Shenrue's idea of reviving Shong Huaming. Alas, Brother Fan, this, you've said it before. I've already said it many times. I, Shong Huaming, have already perished. There's no need to talk about reviving. And Xiao Hua. Presumably, Brother Fan also knows that although I call him junior brother, he's not the same as eldest senior brother and second senior brother. Father, he has never accepted Xiao Hua as a disciple of Shong Huaming. How can he be qualified to revive Shong Huaming? If he revives Shong Huaming, wouldn't it become a big joke in our country of Shi? -5. Chapter 1282. I see. Jiang Fan was still concerned. This is Shong Huaming's internal affairs. I'd better not get involved. I'll listen to you. Xiao Xianrui shook her head slightly. When I opened Shang Huaming's inheritance palace, I entrusted Shang Huaming to Brother Fan. Whether Shang Huaming stays or not, I'll listen to Brother Fan. In fact, in my opinion, Shang Huaming and 100 Herbs Gate are allies. 100 Herbs Gate has a legitimate reason to occupy Shang Huaming. As a disciple of Shang Huaming, I have no objections. What trouble can others cause? When Xiao Hua heard this, he suddenly realized that he had been worried about Xiao Xianrui's safety just now. Now he knew that there must be many sects coveting Shang Huaming's death. Of course, the 10,000 Poisons sect, which had attacked Shang Huaming before, was one of them. However, the 100 Herbs sect was one step ahead of them and got Xiao Xianrui's approval, so it was justified. Although the strength was respected in the cultivation world, in the case of the same strength, of course, the status should be given. The 100 Herbs sect had Xiao Xianrui in their hands, which meant that they had taken the initiative to protect Xiao Xianrui. Of course, as for the future, when the cultivation world of Shi forgot about Shang Huaming, it was not something they could consider now. At the same time, Xiao Hua also understood that this was not only said to Jiang Fan, but more importantly, Xiao Xianrui said it to Xiao Hua. Sure enough, Xiao Xianrui turned to Xiao Hua and said, Xiao Hua, although father wanted to take you as a disciple of Shang Huaming that day, your cultivation couldn't enter the 3rd level of qi refining. Father wanted to, but he couldn't do it properly. He couldn't break the rules of cultivation in Qi, so you can't be considered a disciple of Shang Huaming. Now that Shang Huaming is no longer here, you don't have to use my identity as a disciple to cultivate. Then, he turned to Jiang Fan and said, Brother Fan, Xiao Hua's aptitude is really bad. You should take into account that he was once a disciple of my Shang Huaming and accept him into the 100 Herbs Gate first. We'll see how good his fortune is in the next few years. If he can reach the 3rd layer of qi refining, then accept him as an official disciple. At least I'm worthy of his 3 years of hard work in my Shang Huaming. I'm worthy of my father's painstaking effort. Hearing this, Jiang Fan looks embarrassed. Sister Rui, you also know that our 100 Herbs Gate has many disciples and the rules are extremely strict. At Xiao Hua's age, with such a low cultivation, he would have already been crippled and expelled from Medicine Gnome Peak. Then, he looked at Xiao Hua and said with a smile, however, Xiao Hua does have some knowledge of medicinal plants. When he came to my 100 Herbs Gate, he didn't forget to ask for some seeds to study for himself. That's something I admire very much. Moreover, since Sister Rui has spoken up to this point, I have to listen to Sister Rui for once. Let's take him into our 100 Herbs Gate as an apprentice to plant herbs. A boy who grows herbs in the 100 Herbs Gate. When Xiao Hua heard this, he couldn't help but sneer inwardly. The entire mountain was filled with disciples of the 100 Herbs sect. If he, a 2nd layer aura refining cultivator, mingled among them, wouldn't his fate be to be bullied? Furthermore, his low cultivation level was not a problem of aptitude. If he had stayed in the 100 Herbs Gate, how could he have stood out one day? Even if he didn't die, he wouldn't reach the 3rd layer of aura refining. Xiao Xianrui, of course, thought more than Xiao Hua. She said timidly, Xiao Hua's aptitude is not good. His cultivation level can't improve, and in the end, he may not be able to plant herbs. Brother Fan, can you give Xiao Hua a disciple title? Absolutely not, Sister Rui. It's not that I don't want to listen to you, but the iron rule of our 100 Herbs Gate is that only disciples in the 3rd layer of aura refining can be accepted into the gate. Shang Huaming can't accept him, and our 100 Herbs Gate can't accept him either. Moreover, to be honest with Sister Rui, our 100 Herbs Gate also has requirements in terms of age. Xiao Hua, I'm afraid, he's already broken the rules. So, if Xiao Hua stays in the 100 Herbs Gate, and in the future, if he can't reach the 3rd layer of aura refining, what if he's kicked out of the 100 Herbs Gate one day? Will his cultivation be crippled? Xiao Xianrui said after thinking for a moment. Sister Rui, you don't have to worry about this. What you said is true, but I'm in charge of the 100 Herbs Gate in the future. As long as I'm here, I can guarantee that this kind of thing won't happen. Jiang Fan patted his chest and said, Ari, I can't make the decision for Xiao Hua. This is all I can do. Thank you, Brother Fan. Xiao Shenrui looked back at Xiao Hua and said, you heard this kind of powerful relationship. If you stay here, you'll have the protection of the 100 Herbs Gate, and your life won't be in danger. In the future, young Master Jiang has already promised you. But if you leave now, I'll make the decision for my father and kick you out of Shonghuaming. In the future, you'll no longer be his disciple. Ari, you're not a disciple anyway. You're just a boy who plants herbs. Your cultivation. Forget it, you've just broken through to the second layer of aura refining. For the sake of our past relationship, I won't abolish your cultivation. As for whether you go or stay, you can decide for yourself. Xiao Shenrui sighed and turned to look at her father's coffin, ignoring Xiao Hua. Although Xiao Hua had already made up his mind, he still pretended to think. After a long time, he cupped his hands and said, thank you, senior sister. Wrong. Whether you stay or leave, I'm no longer your senior sister. Xiao Shenrui looked back and shook her head with a wry smile. Yes, thank you for your kindness, Fairy Xiao. Junior thought for a long time. This 100 Herbs Gate is a place of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Junior's aptitude is very poor. Here. I'm afraid I'll never be able to make a name for myself. Moreover, Junior has always wanted to go out and find my origin. If I stay here, I'm afraid I won't have this opportunity again, so. Ari, I forgot that you still have this knot in your heart. Forget it, I was meddlesome. Xiao Shenrui nodded slightly. Maybe you're a disciple of some famous sect. If you make any mistakes here and someone finds you, we won't be able to explain it. No matter what my origin is, Junior will remember these 3 years in Yellow Flower Ridge. Thank you, Fairy Xiao and Sect Leader Xiao, for taking me in. Xiao Hua bowed again. Well, in that case, Xiao Hua, you, take care of yourself. Xiao Shenrui's face gradually became cold. After thinking for a moment, she took off the storage bag from her waist and handed it to Xiao Hua. I have nothing to give you. Take this storage bag and some yellow talismans. Without these, I'm afraid you won't be able to go far out of Yellow Flower Ridge. Xiao Hua was just about to reach out and take it, but his eyes saw Jiang Fan's smiling face. He immediately withdrew his hand and said, thank you, Fairy Xiao, for your generous gift. You don't have to give me this storage bag. Just give me a few yellow talismans to protect myself. Hearing Xiao Hua's rejection, Xiao Shenrui's eyes suddenly lit up with regret. She clapped her hands and took out a stack of yellow talismans. Then, after a little hesitation, she took out several jade bottles and handed them to Jiang Fan. Brother Fan, I'll have to trouble you to give these yellow talismans, and some Wu Cheng pills, to Xiao Hua. Well, okay. Jiang Fan, who was beside Xiao Shenrui, reached out and took them. He immediately scanned the yellow talismans and jade bottles several times with his divine sense before handing them to Xiao Hua. Although Xiao Hua didn't have divine sense, he could still perceive divine sense. He sneered in his heart. Xiao Hua took the yellow talisman and put it in his arms. Just as he was about to leave, he saw Xiao Shenrui's hand turn over and take out a colorful object from the storage bag. It was the peacock fantasy that Xiao Shenrui had bought in the market before. Xiao Hua and Jiang Fan didn't know what she was going to do, so they just watched quietly. Xiao Shenrui stared at it for a long time, then raised her eyes and said, Xiao Hua, the yellow talismans just now, can be regarded as my reward for your 3 years of hard work. The Wu Kang pills are for you to heal yourself in case you encounter any danger in the future. This, the peacock illusion, is not a magic tool. I remember that you and second senior brother liked it very much. I will give it to you on behalf of second senior brother and wish you a happy birthday. After listening to Xiao Shenrui's words, Xiao Hua suddenly realized that today was his 3rd year in Shonghuaming. Because he didn't know his own birthday, Xiao Yuhong took the day he met Xiao Hua and brought him to Yellow Flower Ridge as Xiao Hua's birthday. Moreover, Xiao Hua also knew that today was also Xiao Shenrui's birthday. At that time, Xiao Yuhong was rushing back to celebrate Xiao Shenrui's birthday, so he met Xiao Hua on the way. This gift is a bit too much. Xiao Shenrui, this junior is afraid that this junior can't afford it. Xiao Hua's heart was desolate. This peacock illusion was originally Xiao Yuehong's birthday gift to Xiao Shenrue. He didn't want to take away Xiao Yuehong's good intentions from Xiao Shenrue. It's not that expensive. That day, I just liked it, so I fought with Brother Fan. If we didn't fight, this thing wouldn't be worth a few pills. Don't you think so, Brother Fan? Ian, that's right. At that time, I was also curious, so I made Sister Rui unhappy. Jiang Fan certainly knew the value of this peacock illusion, so he said without thinking. Yes, it's also because of this peacock illusion that I met Brother Fan. Now that I'm with Brother Fan, this thing is not that important. Xiao Shenrue's face was a little red. She handed the peacock illusion to Jiang Fan and said, "Give it to him." This time, Jiang Fan took the peacock illusion and didn't even use his divine sense. He passed it to Xiao Hua. When he was in Yi City, he didn't know how many times he used his divine sense to check this thing. There was absolutely nothing strange about it. Xiao Hua sighed and took it with his hands. He cupped his hands and thanked Xiao Shenrue. "Thank you, Xiao Shenrue, for your generous gift." "Well, Xiao Hua, you have nothing to do with this place. Go down the mountain." Xiao Shenrue turned to Jiang Fan and said, "Brother Fan, I'm not feeling well. Can you accompany me to send Xiao Hua out?" "Hihi, of course, I dare not disobey Sister Rui's orders." Jiang Fan smiled and nodded. Xiao Shenrue's face was a little red. Xiao Hua looked at the two of them deeply and took the lead to leave the secret room. Outside the secret room, the disciple who brought Xiao Hua here was still waiting outside. When he saw Xiao Hua and others come out, he cupped his hands and saluted Jiang Fan. "Go, inform the disciples to open the array. I will send Xiao Hua down the mountain. In addition, inform the elders of this matter. Forget it, there's no need to say anything. He doesn't know that Shong Huaming has a disciple who hasn't entered the sect. Expelling a disciple who hasn't entered the sect isn't something to brag about." -5. Chapter 1283. When the disciple heard Jiang Fan's order, he was obviously surprised, but then he quickly bowed and said, "This disciple will go and send the message." After saying that, he couldn't help but glance at Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua lowered his head and didn't look up, but his slightly moving eyes took in everything. "Let's go." Jiang Fan came to Xiao Shenrue's side and very naturally held her sleeve. He smiled and said, "You're not feeling well, come with me." "Ian, thank you, Brother Fan." Xiao Shenrue's face was still slightly red, but that red was very obvious on her pale and thin face, just like the sunset glow, poignant. Xiao Hua sighed in his heart for no reason. His mind was full of the voices and smiles of Xiao Yuhong, Gong Mingwei and Zhong Qingxiao, the three faces intertwined and gradually blurred. Jiang Fan flew in front of Xiao Hua with Xiao Shenrue, but Xiao Hua didn't dare to overtake him. He just held his body and flew bit by bit, just like a second-level qi refining disciple. Jiang Fan seemed to be testing him, or maybe it was unintentional. He flew very fast and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and watched for a while, then snorted from his nose. Jiang Fan was at the peak of the 12th level of qi refining, but his escape light was not much faster than Xiao Hua's. If Xiao Hua wanted to catch up, it wouldn't take much effort. However, from the conversation just now, Xiao Hua could see that although Xiao Shenrue had feelings for Jiang Fan and wanted to rely on the 100 Herbs Gate, she also wanted to protect him. She didn't tell Jiang Fan about his affairs in detail. In Jiang Fan's eyes, he should be the image of a useless person. If he wanted to safely get out of Yellow Flower Ridge, he had to endure it again and again. Fortunately, Yellow Flower Ridge belonged to someone. How could Xiao Hua not know the way out? Xiao Hua flew slowly along the countless routes he had taken before, and he looked like he was doing his best. However, right at this moment, a sudden change occurred. A screen of light suddenly appeared in the sky, and it instantly enveloped Xiao Hua within it. As the light barrier fell down, it immediately emitted an intense and resplendent brilliance. It rapidly absorbed the surrounding spiritual energy, and in the blink of an eye, numerous blade-like objects appeared within the light barrier. These objects were actually formed from the spiritual energy of the world, and these blade-like objects constantly rotated, just like a spinning windmill. Wind blade. When Xiao Hua saw this, his eyes unconsciously shrunk. He had heard Zhong Qingxiao talk about this wind blade before. It was a great enemy of qi condensation cultivators. Xiao Hua saw countless rotating wind blades above the light barrier. They were like incomparably sharp steel blades. The moment Xiao Hua recognized them, they all left the light barrier and shot towards Xiao Hua from all directions, drawing countless strange trajectories in the air. Xiao Hua was greatly shocked when he saw this. He only wore an ordinary daoist robe and didn't possess any defensive ability. There was a stack of yellow talismans in his bosom, but he reckoned that they were all low-level goods that would absolutely collapse upon contact if used to resist the wind blades produced by this grand formation. What's going on? At the same time, Xiao Hua was terrified, but at the same time, he immediately started to think he didn't quite understand. Could it be that they want to silence me? Impossible. Xiao Hua immediately dispelled this idea, because Xiao Shenrue had already predicted this situation. First, she specifically ordered him to be sent out of Yellow Flower Ridge. If Jiang Fan wanted to kill him, he wouldn't do it here. After leaving Yellow Flower Ridge, there would be plenty of opportunities. Xiao Hua suddenly had a flash of inspiration. He immediately woke up. This guy is really testing my depth. It's because I haven't appeared for a month that they became suspicious. But since Xiao Shenrue didn't ask, they also can't say anything. I'm just a little disciple at the second level of qi condensation. Is it worth it to do this? Thus, after a brief moment of shock, Xiao Hua immediately took out a stack of yellow talismans from his bosom in a flurry, and then frantically searched for defensive yellow talismans. That expression was simply extremely embarrassing. Sure enough, just as Xiao Hua thought, the yellow talismans in his bosom were extremely low level. Just as the defensive golden bell talisman was about to be used, the wind blades flew in front of him. With just 2 or 3 wind blades, the light protecting Xiao Hua's body was scattered. Help! Xiao Hua shouted himself hoarse. His legs were trembling. If it weren't for the wind blades below him, he would have already fallen from the sky. Seeing that the wind blades were about to pierce Xiao Hua's skin, Xiao Hua was still looking for yellow talismans in a flurry, but the corner of his eyes kept slanting to the side. With a ding sound, a familiar voice sounded, "Oh, it's Junior Brother Xiao." Xiao Hua pretended to be panicked and looked up. In midair, a ray of sunlight shone down, and a gap about the height of a person was opened. The disciple who had just sent a message in front of him stretched half of his body out and shouted, "Quickly come up." Xiao Hua didn't dare to be negligent and immediately flew out of the gap. Looking at Xiao Hua's pale face, that disciple cupped his hands and said, "Junior Brother Xiao, my apologies. This Yellow Flower Ridge's great formation had just been set up. This one still had some carelessness, please forgive me." Xiao Hua nodded with lingering fear and said, I don't dare. This one also thought it was the same as before and didn't pay attention at all. Alas, even if you paid attention, I'm afraid you can't avoid it. That disciple nodded in satisfaction and said with a smile, "Junior Brother Xiao, don't be afraid, embarrassed. Previously, your Shong Huaming's great formation. Alas, it really couldn't withstand a single blow. My 100 Herbs Gate had no choice but to set up more great formations. Senior is wrong." Xiao Hua also shook his head. "This one has already been expelled from Shong Huaming. I'm no longer his disciple. Whatever Senior says has nothing to do with this one." "Oh, I forgot." The disciple woke up and said, "Let's go. I will lead the way. You follow carefully." When Xiao Hua followed that disciple out, Xiao Shenrue was standing outside chatting with Jiang Fan. Xiao Hua had just appeared in the great formation when Xiao Shenrue saw him. The trace of anxiety in her eyes disappeared. She frowned and said coldly, "Xiao Hua, why did you come so late? Alas, your cultivation, in the future, you'll have to practice a lot. You're not even familiar with flying talismans." Xiao Hua's face turned red and he said embarrassedly, "This junior knows. This junior will definitely practice hard in the future." "Alas, what's the use of practicing hard? You'll be a rogue cultivator once you leave Yellow Flower Ridge. What future can you have?" Xiao Shenrue looked at Jiang Fan and said, "I was just chatting with Brother Fan. I heard that the Huanhua sect is recruiting disciples again. If you have the heart to practice, you might as well go and take a look. Huanhua sect. Xiao Hua was stunned. He had never heard of this name. The Huanhua sect is a big sect in the country of Shi. It's different from my 100 Herbs sect. They don't stick to one pattern when they recruit disciples. They don't only look at your foundation and aptitude. If you have the opportunity, even if you don't have the talent for cultivation, you can still be accepted into the sect. Jiang Fan said with a smile. However, because of this, the Huanhua sect has a bad reputation for teaching everyone regardless of background. I was just talking with Sister Rui. This place is quite suitable for you. Teaching everyone regardless of background? Does it mean that there are all kinds of disciples? Xiao Hua's eyes lit up and he asked curiously. Yes, that's right. The reason why they are called big sects is because of this. Xiao Xianrui nodded. Although your aptitude is extremely poor, I think that even a loose sect like the Huanhua sect may not be able to accept you. But, after all, this is still an opportunity. Go and take a look. Yes, Junior understands. Xiao Hua bowed. Xiao Xianrui, please point out the direction. Xiao Xianrui looked deeply at Xiao Hua and pointed in the direction of the Huanhua sect. She waved her hand and said, Go. From now on, in the country of Shi, in the Xiaoyu continent, there will be no more Shong Huaming's name. You are also a rogue cultivator. Xiao Hua felt a burst of misery in his heart. He nodded silently and once again bowed deeply to Xiao Xianrui. After cupping his hands to Jiang Fan and the others, he turned around and flew in the direction of the Huanhua sect. His speed was still very slow, so slow that Jiang Fan could catch up with him if he used his magic power. After flying for a while, Xiao Hua suddenly looked back. In the distance, Xiao Xianrui was still standing there. Although he didn't know whether she was looking at him or not, Xiao Hua's heart felt warm. She must be worried about him. Of course, maybe she was worried about others. Knowing Xiao Xianrui's thoughts, Xiao Hua wasn't in a hurry. He flew at the speed of the second layer of qi refining for a while. He felt that the divine sense that had just swept over him had disappeared. This time, his expression changed. He used his magic power and used all his strength to fly in another direction. After flying for a while, he immediately lowered his altitude and flew back in the direction of the Yellow Flower Ridge. It took him more than an hour to fly out of the Yellow Flower Ridge. It took him the time to drink a cup of tea to circle around the ridge. It only took him the time to eat a meal to return to the other direction of the Yellow Flower Ridge. The difference in speed was absolutely huge. The Yellow Flower Ridge was still covered in white fog, just like before. But Xiao Hua knew that the Yellow Flower Ridge was absolutely different from before. Perhaps the legends in the world were still circulating, and the protagonist of the Yellow Flower Ridge had changed to someone else. At this time, it was really noon. The hot sun hung above his head. Xiao Hua squinted his eyes and stared at the Yellow Flower Ridge not far away for a long time. Then, he landed and searched all over the mountain. Xiao Hua wasn't familiar with the surroundings of the Yellow Flower Ridge, but Zhong Qingxiao was very familiar with it. She had been noisy in Xiao Hua's ears all day long. Xiao Hua naturally knew that there were some more hidden caves in the mountains outside the Yellow Flower Ridge. When Xiao Hua really found a cave and entered it, he used a stone to block the entrance of the cave. He couldn't help but think of his second senior brother, and his boiling hot tears flowed down his cheeks. Usually, they didn't feel any affection for each other. Sometimes, Zhong Qingxiao would bully him from time to time. Every time, Gong Mingwei would stand up and uphold justice for him. These things, he had never thought about them before, and he didn't think much of it. But now, hiding in the cave that Zhong Qingxiao had once spoken of, those scenes of the past came one after another, endlessly gushing out. It was as if his rolling tears had no end. -5. Chapter 1284. After letting the tears flow freely for a while, Xiao Hua stretched out his hand and wiped them away. Xiao Xianrui, as a woman, could endure for his safety, so why couldn't he hide the sorrow in the bottom of his heart? It was dark inside the cave. Xiao Hua sat cross-legged with his eyes closed, thinking quietly. Yes, from the moment he learned of Xiao Yuehong's death, until he met Xiao Shenrue, until he left Yellow Flower Ridge, he didn't ask about the cause of Xiao Yuehong's death, nor did he ask who the murderer was. If it wasn't the 100 Herbs sect, then it must be the 10,000 Poisons sect. These two sects definitely have something to do with it. Xiao Hua mused. This Bai Kao men is even more suspicious. Zhong men did not meet with danger early or late, but when Xiao Shenrue went to the Bai Kao men, Gong Mingwei and Zhong Qingxiao went to deliver her, he met with danger? This must be a trap set by the 100 Herbs sect. Yes, it must be. They first used the banner of an alliance, and then they tried to unite by marriage. They made 2 preparations. That day, sect leader didn't agree to their marriage, so they made the first move and killed me, Shong Huaming. Then they entered Yellow Flower Ridge with the identity of an alliance and controlled senior sister. Even if others had some complaints, it was justified and no one could do anything about it. Of course, the 10,000 Poisons sect is also suspicious, but if the 10,000 Poisons sect killed sect leader and 2 senior brothers that day, they should have occupied Yellow Flower Ridge immediately. They definitely wouldn't have waited for my senior sister to come back from Medicine Farmer Peak and be occupied by the 100 Herbs sect. Right, what about Little White? What happened to Little White? That day, it was undergoing its lightning tribulation. Spirit beasts that can undergo lightning tribulation are all at the Foundation establishment stage. This is what second senior brother said, it can definitely help sect master. Xiao Hua thought of Little White who was undergoing its lightning tribulation. I don't know the strength of the 10,000 Poisons sect, but sect leader said that the 100 Herbs sect has several elders in the Foundation establishment stage. It seems that Little White was either killed by the elders of the 100 Herbs sect or driven away by them. Xiao Hua was more and more certain that the 100 Herbs sect was the culprit who killed Xiao Yuhong, Gong Mingwei and Zhong Qingxiao. Even Jiang Fan's gentle smile was seen by him as hiding evil intentions. HMPH, you want to test yours trueless cultivation? Do you think yours truly is that stupid? Xiao Hua thought angrily, poor senior martial sister, in order to save her life, she can only feel wronged. I hope this young Master Jiang will treat senior martial sister a little better. If he treats senior sister a little better, I might consider not taking his life in the future. If he makes senior sister feel wronged in the slightest, I'll cut him into 7 or 8 pieces first. Yes. Also, although senior sister wants me to go to the Huanhua sect, in reality, she doesn't want me to go to the Huanhua sect. This is a smokescreen. But, where can I go now? 100 Herbs Gate will definitely chase after me. If they can't catch up to me, they'll probably guess that I'm somewhere around Yellow Flower Ridge. I'll wait until it's dark before I leave. This time, I'll definitely fly far away. I can't let 100 Herbs Gate sense anything. Where are we going? Xiao Hua was at a loss. Ever since he woke up, he had been staying in Yellow Flower Ridge for the past 3 years. Apart from the last time he went to the Medicine Farmer Peak, he had never gone out. Regarding this country of Shi, what Dawn Rain continent, it was all pitch black. The overseas celestial clan? Maybe they can find my origin. Can I get a ship to go out to sea? Xiao Hua still pondered. If I can get a trace of memory from tracing light, I'm almost certain that if I can break tracing light, I'll be able to find out my origin. But, this thing, who knows how to break it? I'm afraid it's too far to put all my hope on tracing light. Maybe I won't have an answer even if I die of old age. It's better to cultivate while searching Dawn Rain continent, and see if I can dig out memories from tracing light. Just as Xiao Hua was pondering, 100 Herbs Gate. Although they weren't the culprits Xiao Hua had identified, but they were doing what Xiao Hua had expected. Early on, Xiao Shenrue stood outside the great array of Yellow Flower Ridge. She waited until Xiao Hua's back could no longer be seen, but she still stood there. Let's go, Sister Rui. Xiao Hua has already gone far. He'll definitely be lucky if he goes to Huanhua sect and will be accepted into the sect. You don't have to worry. After all, he has to walk his own path. As his senior sister, you've done your best. Alas, Brother Fan, you must know the pain in my heart. This Shong Huaming is gone just like that. I feel terrible. Although Xiao Hua isn't my disciple, once he leaves, my heart is also empty. Xiao Shenrue didn't avoid these things and told Jiang Fan the truth. I understand. Jiang Fan said with a smile. Nostalgia is human nature. Cultivators like us can't be free from vulgarity. Then I'll stay with you for a while. I hope that when you turn around and leave, you can face our beautiful future with a new mood. Thank you, Brother Fan, I understand. Xiao Shenrue nodded slightly and turned her head to look at the sky where Xiao Hua left. In fact, when she saw Xiao Hua flying at the speed of the second level of the Qi refining realm, she was already relieved. She knew that before Xiao Hua broke through to the second level of the Qi refining realm, his flying speed had already surpassed hers. Now that he had reached the second level of the Qi refining realm, although she didn't pay attention to how fast he was flying, it was definitely much faster than what she saw just now. Xiao Shenrue's mouth unconsciously curved slightly, revealing a smile that she hadn't seen for a long time. She laughed in her heart and said, "This junior brother is not much worse than second senior brother." She stood there and waited for Jiang Fan to urge her again. Only then did Xiao Shenrue follow him into the great array of Yellow Flower Ridge. When Jiang Fan turned around, he winked at the disciple standing next to him. The disciple nodded slightly. When both of them entered the great array, the disciple sent out a messaging charm. A dozen disciples of the 6th or 7th level of the Qi refining realm came out of the great array. They whispered in the disciple's ear and then chased after Xiao Hua. It wasn't until late at night that these disciples came back with tired faces. Looking at their depressed faces, it seemed that they didn't find anything. At this time, Jiang Fan was standing in the hall of Shang Huaming's former residence, pacing back and forth. From time to time, he would look up at the sky. Faintly, he muttered, "Junior brother Xing, can't you be a little more ruthless? You're making me so embarrassed." Jiang Fan scanned with his divine sense and knew that the disciples who were searching for Xiao Hua had returned. He quickly walked forward a few steps, but then his face changed color. At this time, outside the great array of Yellow Flower Ridge, inside the cave, Xiao Hua had already made up his mind. "It doesn't matter where I go. The most important thing is to improve my strength. As long as my cultivation reaches the Gold Core realm, as long as I reach the late stage of the Foundation Establishment realm, I will be able to avenge the sect master. However, if I want to improve my cultivation, the first thing I have to do is to find spiritual plants and refine medicinal pills. Although the method of taking medicinal pills to improve my cultivation has its drawbacks, making my Dao foundation unstable, I don't have any other good methods. If there were any method to steadily improve my cultivation, I wouldn't drink poison to quench my thirst like this. The second thing I have to do is to find a cultivation method. Right now, I'm in the second layer of the aura refining realm, and I still have Shang Huaming's corresponding cultivation method to cultivate. Once I break through to the third layer of the aura refining realm, I'll be in a predicament where I have no cultivation method to use. In fact, if possible, it's best to find a cultivation method that can help me advance from the first layer to the 12th layer of the aura refining realm, once and for all. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua's eyes lit up. He stroked his ear and took out the summoning talisman that Cai Zhuoxia had given him from the space behind his head. He muttered, 100 Zhong Peak? An individual cultivator whose cultivation has reached the Gold Core realm? Sect leader thought that I could always cultivate Shang Huaming's cultivation method until I reached the Gold Core realm. Unfortunately, that cultivation method has already fallen into Jiang Gentong's hand. In the past, I naturally had to listen to sect leaders' orders. I didn't need to go to 100 Zhong Peak and didn't need to covet other people's cultivation methods. But now, I've already become an individual cultivator. For the sake of Elder 100 Zhong's Gold Core cultivation method, I have no choice but to go to 100 Zhong Peak. Finished thinking, Xiao Hua stood up from the ground, pushed aside the stones blocking the entrance of the cave, and came out of the cave. Borrowing the weak moonlight, he knelt down in front of Yellow Flower Ridge and kowtowed 9 times. He silently muttered a few words in his heart, stuck a flying talisman on his body, and flew up. The direction he was going was precisely where Huanhua sect was located. What's this? Not long after Xiao Hua flew up, he happened to see an emerald green brilliance flashing under the mountain peak. That brilliance was extremely weak, only flashing for a moment. If Xiao Hua's 5 senses weren't sharp, he definitely wouldn't have been able to see it. At this time, Xiao Hua was already poor, so how could he let go of something that might be useful? When he landed and saw the thing on the ground, he couldn't help but frown. This thing was none other than the deity statue with a human body and a snake tail that Xiao Hua had seen in Songhua Ming's inheritance palace. This statue was leaning obliquely between the mountain rocks and messy grass. If it wasn't for the water-like moonlight, Xiao Hua definitely wouldn't have seen it in his hurry. Why is this deity statue here? Could it have been thrown out by 100 Herbs Gate? Xiao Hua lifted the statue and looked left and right. After confirming it, he suddenly realized what Gong Mingwei had said in the inheritance palace. Only sect leader and senior sister know the restrictions of the inheritance palace. I guess senior sister compromised and opened the restrictions of the inheritance palace. After 100 Herbs Gates Jiang Fan obtained Songhua Ming's cultivation method, the inheritance palace would naturally be used for other purposes. And this statue was enshrined by Songhua Ming. 100 Herbs Gate probably has something they enshrined themselves. But Jiang Fan could have just destroyed this statue. At worst, he could have just thrown it in the depths of Yellow Flower Ridge. Why would it come here? Xiao Hua scratched his head. His previous guess was basically correct, but he wasn't Jiang Fan. He didn't know that Jiang Fan originally wanted to destroy this statue, but he didn't know what the statue was made of, so Jiang Fan couldn't destroy it no matter what. But if he threw it in Yellow Flower Ridge and if Xiao Shenrue saw it, it would be hard to say. Therefore, he told his disciples to throw it far away. There were always lazy people. The disciple who threw the statue was not familiar with this place. After flying for a while, he was scared, so he threw it away and went back to report. Xiao Hua was also coincidental. He flew past here, so of course he could pick it up. Xiao Hua looked around again, but didn't see anything else. He exerted force in his hand, and with a thought, the statue suddenly disappeared. It was taken into the space of his mind. -5. Chapter 1285. Inside Yellow Flower Ridge, on top of Mincy Peak, Jiang Fan scanned with his divine sense and knew that his disciple had returned empty-handed. After the disciple reported back, he said coldly, Xiao Hua is just a boy who has just entered the second layer of qi refining. His flying speed is so slow. A dozen 6th-layer qi refining disciples actually spent an afternoon and several hours and still couldn't catch him? This disciple is stupid. This disciple and the others had estimated his flying speed and moved forward to search for him. Later on, when we saw that something was wrong, we spread out and searched the area within 100 miles. However, we didn't find any trace of him. Are you sure you've searched all the places? Jiang Fan asked coldly. Yes, young master. He went for less than 2 hours, at most a few 100 miles. Our speed is much faster than his. There's no reason we can't find him. The disciple was very puzzled. Chimph, no reason? We just can't find him now. Jiang Fan snorted coldly. He flies slowly and his direction is fixed. Why can't we find him? Where could he have gone? Young master, this guy is only in the 2nd layer of qi refining. His cultivation is pitifully low. What's the use of looking for him? If Xiao Shenzi finds out, how can you explain it to her? Nonsense, I was afraid she would be unhappy, so I didn't take him down in front of her. Listening to Jiang Fan's tone, he really treated Xiao Shenrue very well and didn't want her to be unhappy. But, how was Shong Huaming killed? Our 100 Herbs Gate knows nothing. At that time, only Xiao Shenrue and Xiao Hua were at Yellow Flower Ridge. Since Xiao Shenrue has been killed, we can only ask Xiao Hua about it. Xiao Shenzi didn't ask because she knew she didn't have the ability to take revenge. But we can't. Since we have occupied Yellow Flower Ridge, we must know why Shong Huaming was killed. We can't repeat the same mistake. Xiao Hua said that he was sent to the depths of Yellow Flower Ridge to pick herbs. That does make some sense. But I've always wanted to ask in my heart. Ayo, I understand now. Xiao Hua looks very simple and honest, but is actually so shrewd. Have you searched the surroundings of Yellow Flower Ridge? Jiang Fan suddenly realized. No, I only searched in the direction of Huanhua sect. I also searched hundreds of miles away, but I didn't search around Yellow Flower Ridge. The disciple suddenly thought of something. Young sect master, you mean, Xiao Hua flew very slowly, he must have been afraid that we would catch up to him, so he turned back halfway and hid near Yellow Flower Ridge. Jiang Fan sneered, let's go, he must still be somewhere around here. Yes, disciple will leave now. The disciple cupped his hands and left. At this time, Xiao Hua had already put away the god statue and was about to fly up. Suddenly, he thought, Jiang Fan threw away the god statue in Shonghua Ming's inheritance palace. Of course, he wasn't afraid of being seen by senior sister. Since this is the case, then senior sister must be unable to enter the inheritance palace. Then, wouldn't senior sister have lost her value? Senior sister's life is in danger. For a moment, Xiao Hua stood in the air, not knowing what to do. After a while, he let out a long sigh. What a pity, what a pity. I have the heart, but I'm powerless. Even if senior martial sister follows me out of Yellow Flower Ridge, where else can we go? It would be better to let senior sister stay in 100 Herbs Gate. She might even be able to keep her life. Forget it, let's go, let's go. As he spoke, he urged his magic power and flew rapidly in the direction of Huanhua sect. His speed was several times faster than it was at noon. Just as Xiao Hua flew away for the time it took to drink a cup of tea, the disciples of 100 Herbs Gate arrived and searched desperately, but how could they find traces of Xiao Hua? Even after that, Jiang Fan sent a lot of people to search a larger area, but the direction they were looking for wasn't the direction of Huanhua sect. Not to mention how fast they were flying, even if they followed Xiao Hua's previous worst-case scenario, even if their young sect master Jiang Fan and that foundation establishment stage elder went out to search together, he was afraid that they wouldn't be able to find anything. Although Xiao Hua urged his magic power with all his might and raised his flying speed to the fastest, he flew forward for nearly 4 hours. At this time, the sky was already slightly bright. Along the way, he flew over a continuous range of mountains. Occasionally, he would see a sparse village on the plains or beside a river. Xiao Hua only looked at them, not daring to stop. At this time, the flying talisman on his body was gradually losing its effect. Xiao Hua had no choice but to stop. After looking around, his figure landed and flashed to the side of a mountain stream. Panting slightly, Xiao Hua's nervous mood gradually calmed down. He calculated that he had just flown for 4 hours. Although he wasn't sure exactly how far he had flown, his speed should be several times faster than the second layer of the aura refining stage. Whether it was time or distance, he definitely far exceeded 100 Herbs Gate's estimation. Even the disciples who were chasing him earlier might not have chased him this far. Therefore, Xiao Hua sat cross-legged, very peacefully regulating his breathing and recovering his magic power. Time flowed like water. When Xiao Hua opened his eyes again, the sun was already high in the sky. The mountain stream was empty, and birds were singing. This kind of unknown sound was everywhere, giving off a feeling of paradise outside the world. Xiao Hua closed his eyes again, relaxing his mind. It was as if he had grown another pair of eyes, reflecting everything around him into his heart. The quiet and peaceful atmosphere also made his slightly tired heart feel extremely tranquil. Alas tilde after a long time, Xiao Hua let out a long sigh. What's the point of being a person? What's the point of only cultivating? Take school head Xiao for example. He's lazy, doesn't like trouble, and doesn't want to offend anyone. Unexpectedly, he was also targeted by 100 Herbs Gate, and in a moment of carelessness, his sect was exterminated. What's more, Little White was already a demonic beast undergoing tribulation. With great difficulty, it cultivated from a snake to the foundation building stage. How difficult was that? Unfortunately, when it succeeded, it became a small fish that got caught in the crossfire. I didn't hear Senior Marshal Sister mention Little White's corpse. Presumably, long before she returned to Yellow Flower Ridge, 100 Herbs Gate had already taken her back to Medicine Farmer Peak. Since cultivation is so cruel, it's really not as good as a mortal building a house by this stream. When he's thirsty, he'll drink morning dew. When he's hungry, he'll catch fish in the stream. He'll live a carefree life. Thinking up to this point, Xiao Hua let out a burst of hoarse laughter. He said self-deprecatingly, even if it's this carefree life, how long can it last? Not to mention that life is short, several decades will pass in the blink of an eye. Even if I hide from the world here, how can it be a true paradise? Even a great formation like Yellow Flower Ridge was breached, and this mountain wilderness is even more defenseless. If any cultivator finds you displeasing to the eye, a yellow talisman will be enough to take your life. How can you still talk about living a carefree life? Survival of the fittest, survival of the fittest. Only by cultivating extraordinary magical abilities can one have the freedom to not be controlled by others. Only then can one soar freely in this world. Thinking up to this point, Xiao Hua couldn't help but feel his blood boil. His entire mind opened up, and an incomparable ambition was born. It was as if he wanted to trample this world under his feet. It's good to think clearly, but I can't think too far. Biting off more than I can chew will only make me fall even more miserably. After a moment, Xiao Hua gradually calmed down. The corners of his mouth revealed a slight smile. I'll slowly raise my cultivation. Only when I have the strength will I have the qualifications to think about more things. Immediately, Xiao Hua waved his hand and took out the snake-shaped ring from the space. At this time, the ring was different from before. At the very beginning, the ring in Xiao Hua's space only had a snake body. The snake body didn't have a snake head at the front, nor did it have a snake tail at the back. There were only a few vague claws. At this time, the snake body's back had already been mended. Only 2 claws could be seen growing out of the abdomen. Each of the claws had 5 toes, and they clawed down from the air. The mended snake tail was also different from an ordinary snake tail. The tail was extremely similar to a butterfly's wings. The shape of the entire ring was exactly the same as when Xiao Hua saw Little White transform into a python dragon to undergo tribulation. Even if Xiao Hua had never seen a dragon before, he already understood that this was a dragon-shaped ring. It was a ring that lacked a dragon head. Of course, this wasn't the most important thing. What made Xiao Hua frown and think hard the most was that when he was unconscious on the peak of Cherishing Flower Peak a few days ago, this dragon-shaped ring passed some incomplete cultivation method into his mind. And this incomplete cultivation method was the so-called dragon transformation art. At the same time, he also knew that this dragon-shaped ring was called Dragon Jade. It's very strange. This dragon transformation art looks extremely simple, but it's completely different from the Death Flower Dark mantra that I've comprehended before. It's as if it's simply not used for cultivation, or perhaps it's used to refine the body. Xiao Hua's only knowledge of cultivation came from Zhong Qingxiao's nagging, but even if it's for refining the body, this cultivation method, I'm also unable to make sense of it. I don't know how to start. Could it be because the cultivation method is incomplete? Maybe when I find this Dragon Jade's dragon head and complete this dragon transformation art, I'll be able to cultivate it. But that's also not right. If this dragon transformation art was given to me by Little White, then why can it cultivate into a dragon? This Dragon Jade is only the tail, and it's even less than half of mine now. Xiao Hua scratched his head a bit. He held the Dragon Jade with both hands, his fingers stroking the fine dragon scales on the Dragon Jade's body as he thought carefully. Suddenly, his 2 hands touched the Dragon Jade's meridians. They jumped slightly, as if it was a kind of pleasant surprise, a kind of pleasure. What's going on here? Xiao Hua's heart stirred, and he tried again. Sure enough, the meridians moved slightly again, as if they were not happy at all. When Xiao Hua tried to send his magic power into the Dragon Jade again, the meridians did not have any reaction. Suddenly, Xiao Hua remembered the change in his meridians when Little White was going through the tribulation. That lightning tribulation was clearly Little White's, so why are my meridians so scared? That lightning tribulation was clearly aimed at Little White, so why did it hit me instead? Could it be that my meridians are somewhat special? That's right, sect leader, didn't he say before? He felt that my meridians are different from normal meridians, as if they have vitality and vitality. It can even be said that they're alive. Living meridians, really inconceivable. Could it be that my cultivation can't be raised normally because of these meridians? Could it be that I have to cultivate my meridians first before my cultivation can be raised normally? Xiao Hua followed his own thoughts, and Xiao Yuehong's words, and continued to think without restraint. Suddenly, an inconceivable idea, one that he had never thought of before, appeared in Xiao Hua's mind. -5. Chapter 1286. My meridians, since they might be alive and are so sensitive to Little White's lightning tribulation, and Little White might be cultivating the dragon transformation art, then, can I also, no, that's not right, can my meridians also cultivate the dragon transformation art? An unimaginable idea formed in Xiao Hua's mind. Once this idea was born, it was immediately like withered grass meeting the spring breeze, dry firewood meeting a raging fire. It became uncontrollable, becoming a spark of fire that started a prairie fire. Moreover, as this idea brewed in Xiao Hua's mind, he increasingly felt that this idea could be implemented. Meridians are thin and long, like a long snake. Although I don't know how long it is, if I cultivate it bit by bit, I will eventually be able to cultivate it to the end. Xiao Hua was all smiles, as if he had discovered a huge gold mine. The saliva at the corner of his mouth was about to drip down. But if this dragon transformation art is successfully cultivated, my meridians will become a dragon. What about me? Will I also become a dragon? Xiao Hua suddenly thought, Ayo, I understand, the god in Shonghua Ming's inheritance palace cultivated the dragon transformation art? She didn't have legs, only a snake body. Could it be that when I cultivate to the end, I will become that kind of person? If that's the case, I won't do it, not a human. Not a snake, really ugly. Xiao Hua curled his lips and waved his hand. The statue of the god was taken out by him. It was unknown how heavy the statue was, but in Xiao Hua's hand, it was not heavy at all. It seemed to be an empty shell. Fortunately, the tail of this god is indeed a snake tail and not a dragon tail. I remember that Little White also had a dragon tail, exactly the same as this Long Yu. Presumably, this so-called god did not cultivate the dragon transformation art. Right, could it be that this dragon transformation art was created by this god? Xiao Hua thought again, oh, that's not right, the middle part of this Long Yu is in the space behind my head, it has nothing to do with this god. Could it be that it is related to the overseas celestial race? Thinking, Xiao Hua put the statue of the god into the space, and then put the Long Yu inside. Cultivate or not? Xiao Hua was somewhat hesitant. If I cultivate a dragon, I'm afraid it will be a yellow dragon. With Little White. Sigh, Little White is already gone. Even if I master the yellow dragon, I won't be able to see Little White again. Sigh, what am I thinking? I don't even know how to use the meridians to cultivate the dragon transformation art. Why should I worry about it? I really don't know how to treat a disease if I'm not sick. Xiao Hua suddenly realized and slapped his forehead. I should think more about the bone refinement technique that I obtained from reverse light and see how I can master the light evasion technique step by step. Why would I suddenly think of cultivating the dragon transformation art? Using meridians to train? Xiao Hua almost laughed involuntarily. However, there are many difficulties in cultivating the light evasion technique. Last night in the cave, he also thought about it a bit. According to the reverse light evasion technique that was transmitted to his mind, before cultivating the real light evasion technique, there must be two conditions. The first is to temper the bones of the whole body 7 times, completely tempering them into 7 colors like light. The fluctuations of the bones of the whole body should also be the same as light. Only then can the body merge with the light and cultivate the light evasion technique. The second condition is to master the 5 elements evasion technique of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, as well as the wind and thunder evasion technique one by one. Only then can one be qualified to cultivate the light evasion technique. These 2 conditions are out of Xiao Hua's reach. Let's talk about the 5 elements evasion technique first. Xiao Hua has never heard of it. Zhong Qingxiao has never said a single word in her daily chatter. As for Xiao Yuhong, who is in the middle stage of foundation establishment, he has never used the evasion technique. How can Xiao Hua know? Then there is the bone refinement technique. It is clearly stated in the martial technique that one must first have the bone tempering fist technique and magic art. Then, one must use the 5 elements origin to temper the bones. Not to mention what the 5 elements origin is, Xiao Hua simply doesn't know. Even the bone tempering fist technique and magic art, although the golden figure in reverse light evasion technique used it many times, in Xiao Hua's mind, he doesn't remember it at all. The remnant memories that occasionally remain in his mind are telling Xiao Hua that the figure is completely different from a human's figure. Since the figure is different, the bone tempering fist technique and magic art will naturally be different. In other words, what the golden figure taught is not suitable for Xiao Hua. If Xiao Hua wants to temper his bones, then he must find the bone tempering fist technique and magic art that are suitable for him. Good. I originally thought that I picked up a treasure and fainted for more than a month because I had a fortuitous encounter and obtained some world-shaking martial technique. I didn't expect that it was actually just a reflection of the moon in the water, completely useless. In the end, I still have to painstakingly do it myself. Xiao Hua doesn't know whether to laugh or cry. He thinks, if I want to practice the light evasion technique, one must find the 5 elements evasion technique and the other one must find the bone tempering fist technique or magic art. These are all inexplicable things, simply more unrealistic than comprehending how to cultivate the dragon transformation art. Xiao Hua almost raises his middle finger. If I want to practice the light evasion technique, it would be better to be down to earth and cultivate ordinary martial techniques. From the second layer of the Qi refining stage, the third layer, to the foundation establishment stage and the gold core stage, this is more realistic, there is always a bit of hope. After thinking it through, Xiao Hua threw all unrealistic thoughts to the back of his mind and inwardly calculated, 100 Zhong Peak is very far from here. It can be said that it is in the opposite direction. If there are any dangerous places in between, the sect master didn't say anything. If I want to go there, I must first inquire about it and make some preparations. In any case, it is still early, there is no need to rush to 100 Zhong Peak. Although Senior Marshal's sister gave me some yellow talismans, it is still not enough. I have to find someone to exchange for some. But, who can I find? What can I use to exchange with them? Xiao Hua has never been to Yi City, he also doesn't know how to exchange. In his hands, he only has a single spirit stone on the body of the puppet in his mind. He really is poor to the point of jingling. That's right, I can use spiritual plant. Xiao Hua suddenly slapped his head and suddenly came to a realization. No, in the space behind Xiao Hua's mind, not only were there the absorption fruit and black tuber grass used to refine the Peiyuan pill, but also the parasol grass and blood-devouring grass used to refine the parasol pill were over 100 years old. Even the exquisite grass used to refine the foundation building pill had sprouted tender shoots. Obviously, they were already over 100 years old. Moreover, Xiao Hua faintly felt that ever since he advanced to the second layer of the Qi refining realm, the spiritual light emitted by the tracing light in his mind space had strengthened. It seemed to be a bit stronger than before, almost 2 years old in a day. However, whether it was true or not, Xiao Hua himself wasn't clear. After all, he had never seen spiritual plants over 100 years old. Everything he saw was from Shong Huaming's ancient records. The detailed age of the spiritual plants still needed to be confirmed further. However, even so, these 100-years-old spiritual plants were really amazing. After all, according to Xiao Hua's experience, the spiritual plants that Xiao Shenrue and the others produced in Yi City were all 10 to 20 years old. There was also the parasol pill refined from these aged spiritual plants. These kinds of things could occupy a place in Yi City. Of course, the 100-years-old spiritual plants would be even more popular. But, where is this Yi City? I only heard second senior brother and the others say that it's in Jingbua City, but they didn't say the specific location. Moreover, there should still be some time before we leave Yi City. Even if I go, what can I do? Just as he was thinking, he heard the sound of weapons in the air above the mountain stream. Hearing the sound, Xiao Hua was startled. He hurriedly hid behind a thick tree several zhong away. He stuck out half of his head and secretly peeked in the air. It can't be the 100 Herbs sect chasing after us, right? He saw that in the air several zhong north of the mountain stream, 3 young Taoists around 20 years old were making hand seals and using their transcendence energy to drive 3 sword talismans. They were fighting back and forth. One of them was around 20 years old, around the 5th layer of the Qi refining realm. He wore a Daoist robe, his teeth were white and his lips were red. His face was arrogant. His opponents were 2 men around 25 to 26 years old. One of them wore a Daoist robe, while the other wore slightly sloppy clothes. These 2 people were both at the 4th layer of the Qi refining realm. At this time, their faces were already red and beads of sweat were dripping down from their foreheads. Although Xiao Hua's cultivation level was low, he could tell at a glance that these 2 people were already at a disadvantage. Not only did the young Daoist's sword talismans move unhindered and unhindered, his sword moves were tight and his transcendence energy was even more profound. The other 2 people couldn't compare to him. The 2 people's sword talismans had already dimmed. The flying swords transformed from the sword talismans were swaying. Every time they collided with the young Daoist's flying swords, they seemed to be unable to withstand it. One of them clenched his teeth and made a hand seal. The sword talisman suddenly emitted a sword light. Ignoring the brilliance of the young Daoist's sword talisman, it looked for an opening and stabbed towards the young Daoist's armpit. Then, the other person made a hand seal and his body swayed at the same time. He actually ignored the sword talisman and prepared to use a flight talisman to escape. Haha, you think you can escape? Han Fei, why haven't you handed over the thing yet? The young Daoist laughed wildly. He simply ignored the sword talisman stabbing towards him. He slightly channeled his transcendence energy. The flying sword transformed from the sword talisman suddenly split into 2 and stabbed towards the 2 people. Dual splendor sword. Seeing this, Han Fei was greatly alarmed. Jiang Huanqi, you're a senior in the 6th layer of Qi refining. Why are you still making things difficult for us 4th layer Qi refining juniors? Only those in the 6th layer of Qi refining can use dual splendor sword? Just as Han Fei cried out in alarm, his flying sword had already pierced Jiang Huanqi's body. A clear light appeared on Jiang Huanqi's body, blocking the flying sword. The sword couldn't pierce through at all. Meanwhile, the 2 sword lights he controlled pierced towards Han Fei and the young Daoist. What do you 2 loose cultivators know? I am in the 5th layer of Qi refining. I can also use dual splendor sword. How can you know the secret techniques of my splendid sect? Didn't you want to stop either day before yesterday? Now that I personally delivered myself to your doorstep, why don't you dare to accept my challenge? Senior, you've wronged me. Han Fei's expression was very anxious. He looked at the similarly panicked loose cultivators next to him and said, the day before yesterday, fellow Daoist Xiao Fengyu and I didn't go for you. We were preparing to ambush someone else. Senior, you walked into the ambush by mistake. Didn't we apologize at that time? Senior, why do you have to force us? Apologize? Jiang Huanqi laughed coldly. Several fireball talismans and 2 earthen spike talismans. If I wasn't careful and didn't have the sect's secret treasures on me, wouldn't I have already lost my life? -5. Chapter 1287. Cut the crap. If the words of a rogue cultivator can be taken seriously, then I'm afraid the sun in the sky will rise from the west. Hand over your life. Jiang Huanqi sneered, his sword talisman stabbing towards Han Fei. Han Fei and Xiao Fengyu smiled wryly. Xiao Hua couldn't tell whether they were really trying to ambush the other person, or whether they coveted Jiang Huanqi because he was alone. Han Fei and Xiao Fengyu channeled their transcendence energy and fought a few more rounds. They were obviously no match for Jiang Huanqi. Seeing that the 2 of them were about to lose their lives, Xiao Hua held his breath and carefully hid himself to avoid being seen by them. At this moment, a sudden shout came from the air behind Xiao Hua, fellow Daoist, please have mercy. Xiao Hua was slightly stunned and hurriedly turned his head. He saw several 4th or 5th level Qi refining cultivators in the air several hundred feet above the mountain stream. They were all wearing different daoist robes as they flew over his head, flying towards the place where the 3 of them were fighting. Shit tilde I'll be seen by others tilde Xiao Hua hurriedly dodged. Of course, he avoided Jiang Huanqi and the others, but his figure was exposed behind a tree. Just as Xiao Hua raised his head to look, one of the cultivators had already discovered Xiao Hua's trace with extreme sensitivity. Xiao Hua was greatly regretful. He didn't know what relationship these people had with Jiang Huanqi. He had just come out of Yellow Flower Ridge and might have gotten himself into trouble. He couldn't help but wonder if he should run away now. Fellow daoist, please have mercy. At the front of the group was a 5th level Qi refining cultivator. He wore a loose grey daoist robe and his face was like a full moon. His face was red and shiny, and he had black hair and thick eyebrows. He was about 30 years old. His voice was extremely loud and clear. Just as he spoke, he waved his hand and 2 light blue radiances flew out, covering Han Fei and Xiao Fengyu. Condensing water talisman? When the light blue radiances hit the 2 of them, they immediately rippled into a watery mist. The mist immediately solidified and a thin layer of watery blue radiance formed on the 2 of them. At the same time, Jiang Huanqi's flying sword talisman transformed into a flying sword and stabbed Xiao Fengyu. When the flying sword saw the watery blue radiance, the radiance rippled but wasn't damaged. Jiang Huanqi involuntarily cried out, "Who are you? Why are you interfering with my Shonghua sect's business?" Shonghua sect. That person also flew over at this time. When he heard the name of the Shonghua sect, he couldn't help but frown slightly. After hesitating for a while, he turned his head and asked, "Fellow daoist, which sect are you 2 from?" "You." Jiang Huanqi was stunned. He thought that this person was Xiao Fengyu's helper, but he didn't know him at all. Han Fei and Xiao Fengyu looked at each other. They cupped their hands and replied, "Fellow daoist, please know that we are both itinerant cultivators." Oh tilde the man nodded and said, "If you 2 fellow daoists believe why don't you tell me about the matter with this fellow daoist? Perhaps I can be the peacemaker." Jiang Huanqi's expression darkened. Although this person didn't say anything, it was obvious that he wanted to interfere. If it weren't for the fact that this person was in the 5th layer of aura refining and had several 4th layer aura refining cultivators behind him, Jiang Huanqi probably wouldn't have been a match for him. Otherwise, he would have attacked him long ago. Suppressing his anger, Jiang Huanqi cupped his hands and said, "I am Jiang Huanqi from the Magnificent Flower sect. Do you have any relationship with my Shonghua sect?" "Nice to meet you, nice to meet you. I have long heard of fellow daoist Jiang's name. You're a good man who clearly distinguishes between kindness and hatred. It's my great fortune to meet you now." The cultivator cupped his hands and said with a smile, "I am Qing Fengmin, an itinerant cultivator who has been abandoned by the heavens. Since I've encountered a matter involving low-level itinerant cultivators, it's not good for me to not ask." Abandoned by the heavens? Itinerant cultivators? Jiang Huanqi frowned. It seemed that he wasn't familiar with this name, but when he heard Qing Fengmin's last sentence, he couldn't help but exclaim, "Abandoned by the heavens?" The so-called alliance of low-level itinerant cultivators that was formed 3 years ago? Fellow daoist Jiang has a good memory. "That's right," Qing Fengmin said with a smile, "it's not easy for itinerant cultivators like us to survive in the country of Xi, especially those below the 4th layer of the Qi refining realm. We're often in a precarious situation. In order to survive, I had no choice but to ally with some other itinerant cultivators and form this alliance. Fellow daoist, please don't laugh at us. Although abandoned by the heavens has only been established for 3 years, it's developing very quickly. I heard that even some foundation establishment itinerant cultivators are showing signs of joining. Even the small sects in the country of Xi can't compare with this kind of reputation. How would I dare to laugh at it?" Jiang Huanqi wasn't afraid of abandoned by the heavens and sneered. "A just cause enjoys abundant support, an unjust cause finds little support. This is an unbreakable truth. Although I, abandoned by the heavens, only protect low-level itinerant cultivators below the 4th layer of the Qi refining realm, Who hasn't started from a low-level itinerant cultivator? Those foundation establishment seniors naturally know the dangers of low-level itinerant cultivators, which is why they lend a helping hand. There's nothing strange about it. Qing Fengmin still had a smile on his face, and his etiquette didn't diminish. Then fellow Daoist Qing, are you sure you want to interfere in this matter? Jiang Huanqi's face turned cold. He, fellow Daoist Jiang, don't be anxious. Although I, abandoned by the heavens, protect low-level itinerant cultivators, I don't mean to blindly protect them. If these two fellow Taoists are indeed in the wrong, and fellow Daoist Jiang really has a grudge against them, I will immediately turn around and leave. I won't ask half a word. Qing Fengmin said with a smile and cupped his hands. Jiang Huanqi snorted and didn't say anything else. Qing Fengmin then turned to Han Fei and said, how should I address you two fellow Taoists? Did you have some misunderstanding with fellow Daoist Jiang? Han Fei and Xiao Fengyu were overjoyed when they heard this. It was as if a long drought had finally met with rain. They hurriedly narrated the whole story. The story was simple, just like what Xiao Hua heard. The day before yesterday, Han Fei and Xiao Fengyu had set up an ambush. They wanted to scheme against another person, but Jiang Huanqi had barged in. Han Fei and Xiao Fengyu were ruthless, wanting to kill him in one fell swoop. But after the two sides fought, the two realized that they were wrong. But how could there be right and wrong in the cultivation world? What's more, you were ruthless. Han Fei and Xiao Fengyu wanted to make the best of it, but Jiang Huanqi was in the 5th layer of the Qi refining realm and a disciple of the Shonghua sect. Han Fei and Xiao Fengyu were far from being able to deal with him. After weighing the pros and cons, the two of them decided to stop. As they ran away, they sent out sound-transmitting talismans to express their apologies. Jiang Huanqi was on a mission from his sect, so he couldn't chase after them. He could only let them escape. When Han Fei and Xiao Fengyu saw that Jiang Huanqi didn't chase after them, they thought that he had forgiven them. In the past few days, they relaxed their vigilance and didn't deliberately hide their whereabouts. Who would have thought that Jiang Huanqi would complete his mission today and come back to settle old scores with them? Well, hearing Han Fei and Xiao Fengyu's words, Qing Fengmin also frowned. Although this matter wasn't a matter of life and death, but it wasn't far from it. You ambushed him. If his cultivation wasn't high, wouldn't he have been dead by now? Seeing Qing Fengmin hesitate, Jiang Huanqi sneered. Han Fei and Xiao Fengyu, on the other hand, were anxious. They cupped their hands and said, Senior Qing, it's really a misunderstanding between us. Think about it. Senior Jiang is in the 5th layer of the Qi refining realm and a disciple of the Shonghua sect. Even if we had 10 times the courage, we wouldn't dare to ambush him. Alas. Qing Fengmin sighed. You two have made things difficult for this matter. Even if I'm heaven forsaken, I'm afraid I can't interfere. Hearing this, Han Fei and Xiao Fengyu became anxious. They shouted, Senior Qing, please save us. If we can escape from this disaster, we are willing to join heaven forsaken and follow your orders. Qing Fengmin shook his head slightly. My two fellow Taoists are too different. In heaven forsaken, everyone is equal. We all have the idea of not giving up on ourselves and helping each other. Even I can't order others to do what I want. Senior. Xiao Fengyu's tone was almost pleading. Senior Qing tilde a 4th layer Qi refining cultivator flew over from behind Qing Fengmin and said with a smile, Senior Jiang of the Shonghua sect and fellow Daoist Han aren't mortal enemies. This is all a misunderstanding. Senior Jiang wants to kill fellow Daoist Han and Xiao Fengyu out of anger. Even if he kills them, Senior Jiang won't get any benefits. In my opinion, why don't fellow Daoist Han and Xiao Fengyu take out enough spirit stones or medicinal pills to compensate for Senior Jiang's loss in exchange for their lives? Wouldn't that be the best of both worlds? Excellent. Qing Fengmin clapped his hands and laughed. You're right. He turned to Jiang Huanqi and said, Fellow Daoist Jiang, even if you kill them, it's just to vent your anger. There's no need to do so. If you can compensate them with external items and avoid karma, wouldn't that be great? Jiang Huanqi's heart trembled. He'd heard of the heaven-forsaken alliance before. At the time, he'd snorted disdainfully. They were all fourth-layer chi refining cultivators, so what could they do? But now, facing so many fourth-layer chi refining cultivators and a fifth-layer chi refining cultivator, he wouldn't be able to easily take Han Fei and Xiao Fengyue's lives. If they fought, he might not be able to escape easily. As a disciple of the Shonghua sect, he might not necessarily be afraid of heaven forsaken, but what if? Hehe, there's no what if. Jiang Huanqi sneered inwardly. He didn't have any deep hatred for Han Fei and Xiao Fengyu to begin with. Whether he killed them or not was up to him. If he was satisfied with something, he could spare them. Seeing Jiang Huanqi's silence, a smile appeared on Qing Fengmin's face. Fellow Daoist Jiang, you're indeed a disciple of a large sect. You're broad-minded and forgiving people whenever possible. That's the wisdom of the Shonghua sect's disciples. Come, fellow Daoist Han and fellow Daoist Xiao, hurry up and thank fellow Daoist Jiang for his magnanimity. Han Fei and Xiao Fengyu were overjoyed and hurriedly bowed. Thank you for sparing our lives, Senior Jiang. Jiang Huanqi flicked his sleeve. It's too early to say. Let me see what you have that's worth your lives. In my storage pouch, there are 100 low-grade spirit stones, 4 mid-grade spirit stones, a dozen or so spirit herbs that are 10 years old, and a dozen or so more jia pills. Please kindly accept them, Senior Jiang. Han Fei said hurriedly. Xiao Fengyu also hurriedly said, the spirit stones, spirit herbs, and pills in my storage pouch are about the same as fellow Daoist Han's. Jiang Huanqi's face was full of contempt. Indeed, apart from spirit stones, Xiao Hua hadn't seen many of these things before. To Shonghua Ming, the rest were not worth mentioning. -5. Chapter 1288. As for spirit stones, although Xiao Hua hadn't seen many, Shong Huaming must have a lot. After all, a parasol elixir could be exchanged for some low-grade spirit stones. If Xiao Yuhong wasn't lazy, Shong Huaming would have saved a lot of spirit stones. Seeing Jiang Huanqi's sneer, Qing Fengmin also smiled bitterly. After all, he was a rogue cultivator with a shallow foundation. He couldn't compare with a disciple of a sect. Xiao Fengyu obviously knew that their things were limited and not enough to exchange for their lives. He glanced at Han Fei and the two exchanged glances, then hurriedly said, please let us finish. Senior Jiang, we know that our belongings are shabby and these things are not worthy of your attention, but we also know that there is a dangerous place in the Amang Mountains where hundreds of years old Ling Long grass grows. Because of our limited cultivation, we didn't dare to go deep and only picked some Ling Long grass in the periphery. Please take a look at these Ling Long grass first. If you think this information is credible, we are willing to exchange the information of the Ling Long grass for our lives. Hearing this, Jiang Huanqi's eyes lit up. The Foundation Establishment Elixir was the key to advancing from the Qi refining stage to the Foundation Establishment stage. Even the Shonghua sect, which was one of the top cultivation sects in the country of Shi, was in short supply. Jiang Huanqi's aptitude was average among his fellow disciples. When he was just 20 years old, his cultivation had reached the peak of the 5th level of Qi refining. Compared to some of the geniuses in the sect, he was much weaker. If he developed normally, he might not be able to reach the Foundation Establishment stage and might not even be able to get a Foundation Establishment elixir from the sect. His Foundation Establishment cultivation was simply like a flower in a mirror. If he could get some mature Ling Long grass and offer it to the Shonghua sect, the Foundation Establishment elixir would be easy to get and his Foundation Establishment cultivation would be within reach. Well, even if it was just information, if the seniors in the sect picked the Ling Long grass, they would be rewarded according to their merit. Thinking of this, Jiang Huanqi frowned and shook his head slightly. Fellow Daoist Chao's words are too easy. If there really is a Ling Long grass, it is equivalent to your lives. Just the information of the Ling Long grass alone, I don't know if it is true or not. Hehe, you want to uncover the grudge between I and you, it is really too easy. Senior Jiang, this junior's information is absolutely true. The two of us have never told anyone about this. If you don't believe me, how about this junior bring you there? Han Fei hurriedly said in a panic. Take me there. Jiang Huanqi was slightly tempted, but when he looked at Qing Fengmin and the others, he immediately rejected the idea and shook his head slightly. Senior, the two of us are sincerely apologizing to you. Qiao Fengyu smiled bitterly. How can you believe us? Next to him, Qing Fengmin said with a smile, Fellow Daoist Jiang, why don't we first take a look at their spiritual grasses and see if they match what they said? If fellow Daoist has any ideas, why don't you tell me? Hearing this, Jiang Huanqi smiled and took the spirit grass from Han Fei's hand. After carefully identifying them, he nodded and said, These spirit grass are very rare. Judging from their color, they should be grown in the wild. It is consistent with what the two of them said. Excellent. Qing Fengmin clapped his hands and said, in other words, fellow Daoist Han and fellow Daoist Qiao didn't deceive fellow Daoist Jiang? I only said that the spirit grass is real. As for the exquisite grass, how would I know if it is real or not? Jiang Huanqi retorted. Well, fellow Daoist Jiang is right. Qing Fengmin didn't seem to be angry at being refuted. He only said gently, but the information of the exquisite grass in exchange for the lives of two people, even I feel that it is too easy. Then, he hesitated for a while. Looking at Han Fei and Qiao Fengyu, he gritted his teeth and said, since it is the lives of two rogue cultivators who are willing to join Heaven Forsaken, I may have to offer something. As he spoke, he patted a small storage pouch in front of him. A dark green object appeared in his hand. Qing Fengmin smiled bitterly and said, to be honest, fellow Daoist Jiang, most of us rogue cultivators don't have anything valuable. The storage pouch I have is not much better than fellow Daoist Jiang's. If I offer a spirit grass or medicinal pill like the exquisite grass, I definitely don't have it. Looking at the object in his hand, he raised his hand and put it in front of Jiang Huanqi, saying, I obtained this when I was training in the Imitang Mountains a month ago. I don't know what it is, but I am sure that there is some great opportunity in it. I originally wanted to keep it to study or use it when the opportunity came. But since fellow Daoist Jiang is involved today, I can't care about anything else. Fellow Daoist Jiang, please take a look and see if it is worth it for fellow Daoist Jiang to stop. Jiang Huanqi didn't care and casually took it. But when he looked at it carefully, he couldn't help but stiffen. A trace of ecstasy appeared in his eyes. Just as the corners of his mouth curled into a smile, it was immediately replaced by doubt. Jiang Huanqi's eyes turned slightly. He raised his head and asked in confusion, fellow Daoist Qing, what is this? What is it used for? Qing Fengmin smiled bitterly and said, I obtained this by chance when I was traveling in the Imitang Mountains. I don't know what it is. I have been studying it for more than a month, but I still don't know its use. Alas, forget it. If fellow Daoist Jiang thinks that this thing has no origin, then just pretend that I didn't say anything. As he spoke, Qing Fengmin reached out to take it. I see. Jiang Huanqi withdrew his hand and nodded slightly, saying, since fellow Daoist Qing is so protective of rogue cultivators, after all, I used to be a low-level qi refining cultivator. I also know the hardships of rogue cultivators. This thing, although it has no origin, it is still fellow Daoist Qing's sincere heart. I will consider it as making friends with fellow Daoist Qing. When everyone heard this, they were overjoyed. Qing Fengmin smiled and said, thank you for your help, fellow Daoist Jiang. Then he turned to Han Fei and Qiao Fengmin and said, fellow Daoists, please tell fellow Daoist Jiang about that place. In addition, please swear that you will never mention this place to anyone else in the future. Of course. Han Fei and Qiao Fengyu cupped their hands and smiled. Then, Jiang Huanqi clapped his hand and took out a silence talisman. He set up a restriction around the three of them. Qing Fengmin and the others couldn't hear their conversation inside the restriction. Looking at Han Fei and Qiao Fengyu's words and Jiang Huanqi's slight nod, the three of them seemed to be satisfied. Not long after, Jiang Huanqi waved his hand and put away the silence talisman. He cupped his hands and smiled at Qing Fengmin, saying, fellow Daoist Qing is really talented. If this Heaven Forsaken is in your hands, It will definitely prosper in the cultivation world of the country of Shi. I don't dare. I am only one of the 3 initiators. Moreover, there is no hierarchy among the fellow Taoists in Heaven Forsaken. There is no control or prosperity. Qing Fengmin corrected him with a smile. He. Jiang Huanqi smiled and didn't say much. He cupped his hands and said goodbye to Qing Fengmin. He didn't even look at the others. After Jiang Huanqi left in a hurry, Han Fei and Xiao Fengyu stepped forward and bowed with gratitude, saying, "Junior greets Senior Qing. Senior, thank you for saving our lives." No need. We are all rogue cultivators. Of course, we have to support each other so that we won't be bullied by others. Besides, as long as you join Heaven Forsaken, you will be fellow Taoists in the future. You don't have to be polite. Qing Fengmin hurriedly helped the 2 of them up and said with a smile, "Well, of course we have to follow the rules. But how do we join Heaven Forsaken?" Han Fei asked respectfully. That's easy. But before I explain it to you, I have to invite a fellow Daoist to come up. Qing Fengmin's face was genial. He turned to Xiao Hua and said warmly, "Fellow Daoist? Could it be that you want to hide behind the tree?" Ah! Han Fei and Xiao Fengyu were stunned. The others also looked at Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua looked at them for a long time and knew that they were all rogue cultivators. Moreover, there was even a rogue cultivator who was Heaven Forsaken. He had already dispelled the idea of escaping. When he heard Qing Fengmin's question, he knew that he couldn't hide. He put on a smile and walked out from behind the tree. He flew into the air and cupped his hands, saying, "Junior Xiao Hua greets seniors." Han Fei and the others were shocked. They didn't expect someone else to be hiding under the tree. However, when they saw Xiao Hua's cultivation, they were even more shocked. Then, a wave of sympathy spontaneously rose in their heart. That's right. Although these rogue cultivators didn't think highly of disciples from real sects, they were all cultivators from the 1st and 2nd layer of aura refining, and had cultivated since they were young. Which one of them hadn't broken through to the 2nd layer of aura refining when they were about 10 years old? It was only because of various reasons that they couldn't reach the 3rd layer of aura refining for a long time that their cultivation was crippled and they were expelled from the sect. Afterwards, due to other reasons, they slowly cultivated back to their peak. But, even so, they had long reached the 3rd or 4th layer of aura refining before the age of 18. As for those who cultivated on their own from the beginning, they had never seen anyone reach the early 2nd layer of aura refining at the age of 18. Fellow Daoist Xiao, you must have heard me. I am Qing Fengmin. Is fellow Daoist Xiao cultivating on your own? Or are you an abandoned disciple of some sect? After Qing Fengmin returned the greeting, he was certain that Xiao Hua was a rogue cultivator. Xiao Hua was at a loss for words. I have spoken too much. Qing Fengmin immediately came to his senses. He slapped his forehead and said with a smile, "How could I ask about this secret of my own origin? It's only because I saw that fellow Daoist's cultivation is low that I felt a sense of concern. Please forgive me, fellow Daoist Xiao. I don't dare. Xiao Hua liked Qing Fengmin's amiable attitude very much. He quickly said, "Junior also has some difficulties, otherwise I would have definitely told you." "No matter, there's no need." Qing Fengmin waved his hand. "I, Heaven Forsaken, have always believed that heroes don't ask about their origins. Miracles are man-made. Since fellow Daoist Xiao is a rogue cultivator, if you don't mind, I also invite fellow Daoist Xiao to join Heaven Forsaken. We can help each other." Xiao Hua was greatly surprised and said with a smile, "Junior is also moved, but I don't know how to join Heaven Forsaken. How can we help each other and support each other?" Qing Fengmin said with a smile, "You and I are both rogue cultivators. When we cultivate, what do we lack the most?" -5. Chapter 1289. Of course it's cultivation methods and medicinal pills. Xiao Hua spat out almost without thinking. Fellow Daoist Xiao is right. Qing Fengmin clapped his hands and laughed. As a disciple of a sect, there's no need to talk about cultivation methods. When you cultivate to a certain level, you'll be given a cultivation method. As long as you have the ability to cultivate, the sect won't be stingy with this cultivation method. Even the elders of the sect can't wait for you to cultivate to a higher level. It's the same for medicinal pills. Ordinary disciples will be given corresponding medicinal pills every month. If you can make more contributions to the sect, you'll get more medicinal pills. Heh! What? Xiao Hua was slightly stunned and muttered in his heart, Shang Huaming doesn't seem to have this kind of treatment. On the other hand, we rogue cultivators are born with a flaw. Medicinal pills are a bit easier to exchange with spiritual herbs or spirit stones. What we lack the most is cultivation method. I don't know how many rogue cultivators have been stuck at the low level of qi refinement for their entire lives because they don't have the corresponding cultivation method. Qing Fengmin bitterly lamented. Including Xiao Hua, several people also felt the same way. Xiao Hua himself could also be considered a loose cultivator. Moreover, he was only at the second layer of the qi refining stage. If he wanted to go further, he didn't even have a single mnemonic. Then senior's meaning is. Xiao Hua felt a bit strange and asked, but he secretly muttered in his heart, could it be that there's a complete cultivation method in this heaven forsaken? Qing Fengmin seemed to see through Xiao Hua's thoughts and shook his head. Heaven Forsaken is just a rogue cultivator's self-help alliance. It's not a cultivation sect. How could there be any cultivation methods? Then, looking at the astonishment on Xiao Hua's face, Qing Fengmin said with a smile, this question. I don't know how many people have asked in the past 3 years, so even if fellow Daoist Xiao doesn't say anything, I also know. Xiao Hua's face was embarrassed and he smiled apologetically. Then, this cultivation method matter? To enter my Heaven Forsaken and exchange what you need with the low-level cultivators in Heaven Forsaken and help each other, the first and only condition is to contribute your cultivation method so that the cultivators in Heaven Forsaken can comprehend it. Ah! Xiao Hua stared blankly. He had never thought of this condition before. Xiao Hua turned his head to look at Han Fei and Xiao Fengyu. The two of them were also surprised and somewhat puzzled. Their expressions were not out of Qing Fengmin's expectations. He chuckled and said, this condition seems very harsh and difficult to understand. But my 3 fellow Taoists. Think about it. If you join my Heaven Forsaken sect and contribute your cultivation methods to others to comprehend, you will be able to do so. While you contribute, you can also comprehend the cultivation methods of the other rogue cultivators of Tian Qi. The number of cultivation methods is extremely huge. Xiao Hua suddenly came to a realization. That's right, as long as I tell him the cultivation technique of the second layer of the aura refining realm, not to mention other people, even Qing Fengmin's cultivation technique would be at least the 5th layer of the aura refining realm, and Xiao Hua would be able to immediately comprehend it. Thinking about it again, how many individual cultivators were there in Heaven's Forsaken? There were probably hundreds of them. Wouldn't he have hundreds of mental cultivation methods to comprehend? Beside him, Han Fei and Xiao Fengyu also came to a realization, and their faces flashed with pleasant surprise. Not only that, I presume, that my 3 fellow Taoists also know the connection between body attributes and cultivation method. Many individual cultivators are unable to cultivate because their body attributes don't match the cultivation methods they cultivate. This kind of trouble definitely doesn't exist in my Heaven's Forsaken sect. Fellow Taoists, think about it. No matter what attribute you have, in my Heaven's Forsaken, there will definitely be cultivation methods that match your body attributes for you to comprehend. Qing Fengmin added more firewood to the fire. Junior agrees. Han Fei rushed to say, Junior has been stuck at the 4th layer of the aura refining realm all this time because my cultivation methods don't match. I've cultivated for several years without any progress. Since there's an alliance of rogue cultivators like Heaven's Forsaken, how can Junior not join? It's just that, our cultivation methods are only at the 4th layer of the aura refining realm. I wonder. Xiao Fengyu probed. That's right, Junior's cultivation method is even more shallow, only at the 2nd layer of the aura refining realm. Xiao Hua took the opportunity to say, although there are very few cultivation methods at the 2nd layer of the aura refining realm, Who told my heaven's forsaken to have such a purpose? Qing Fengmin smiled and said, I work for everyone, and everyone works for me. Even if fellow Daoist Xiao's cultivation method is at the second layer of the aura refining realm, as long as you contribute it, you'll be considered joining my heaven's forsaken. All cultivation methods, including cultivation methods that directly cultivate to the foundation establishment realm, can also be comprehended. Ah! There are cultivation methods that cultivate to the foundation establishment realm? Qiao Fengyu was overjoyed and asked urgently. Of course. Qing Fengmin said proudly, there are also many capable individuals among my group of rogue cultivators. Not to mention foundation establishment, even golden core cultivation methods may not necessarily not exist. Junior also wants to join. How could Qiao Fengyu still hesitate? He cupped his hands and said, Fellow Taoists, please wait a moment. I still have a condition that I haven't mentioned yet. Qing Fengmin waved his hand. Senior, didn't you say there was only one condition? Qiao Fengyu was curious. Oh, this can't be considered a second condition. Qing Fengmin smiled and said, in order to prevent people from harboring evil intentions and only coveting other people's cultivation methods and not completely taking out their own cultivation methods, I, Heaven's Forsaken, have a supplementary condition. That is, if those who join Heaven's Forsaken don't completely contribute their own cultivation methods, if this is discovered by others, their entire cultivation will be immediately crippled and they will be expelled from Heaven's Forsaken. Oh, so it's like that. Han Fei and Qiao Fengyu sighed in relief and said with a smile, this is natural. How can there be only taking and not taking out? Hearing the two's reply, Qing Fengmin said with a smile on his face, there are many benefits to joining my Heaven's Forsaken, so I won't say too much. You'll naturally know in the future. Oh, right, fellow Daoist Xiao, it seems you still haven't expressed your opinion. Seeing Qing Fengmin's eager gaze, Xiao Hua was very conflicted. Logically speaking, Heaven's Forsaken's requirements were not high. As long as he took out what he knew of Shang Huaming's cultivation method, he would be able to comprehend other people's cultivation methods to the high levels of qi refinement, and even foundation establishment and golden core cultivation methods. This was really a great temptation. However, Shang Huaming's cultivation method was passed down by Xiao Yuhong. Thinking of the names of Xiao Yuhong, Gong Mingwei, and Zhong Qingxiao, Xiao Hua couldn't help but have the thought of treasuring Shang Huaming's cultivation method. He really couldn't bear to take it out and let others comprehend it. In fact, thinking about it from another perspective, Shang Huaming's cultivation method had already been used by Xiao Shenrui as a life-saving bargaining chip. Although he didn't take it out now, wouldn't there be many people in 100 Herbs Gate who could comprehend Shang Huaming's cultivation method? Thinking of this, Xiao Hua felt that he was deceiving himself. But, if it was really in his hands, he really couldn't take out this cultivation method. Forget it, let's think about it again. If I take out this cultivation method, will 100 Herbs Gate be willing to give up? Isn't that the same as revealing my whereabouts? Provoking 100 Herbs Gate's pursuit? Xiao Hua found a reason to convince himself. Alas, senior, this junior's cultivation method is really too shallow. How about this junior? Think about it again. Xiao Hua said with cupped hands. Fellow Daoist Xiao doesn't need to worry about this. Qing Fengmin looked at Xiao Hua thoughtfully and said, my fellow Taoists in Heaven Forsaken are all magnanimous people. They definitely won't care about this. However, since fellow Daoist Xiao still needs to think about it, I won't force you. Our country of Shi's rogue cultivators are one family. Heaven Forsaken is the best home for rogue cultivators. If one day fellow Daoist Xiao understands, you can join Heaven Forsaken at any time. Thank you for your righteousness, Senior Qing. Xiao Hua cupped his hands and said, then, this junior won't disturb senior anymore. Fellow Daoist Xiao wants to travel alone? Qing Fengmin didn't expect Xiao Hua to be in such a hurry to leave. He was slightly stunned and said, we're going to Jingbua City. I wonder if it's on the same way as fellow Daoist Xiao? If possible, it's best if fellow Daoist Xiao comes with us. Fellow Daoist Xiao's cultivation still makes I worried. Xiao Hua heard this and couldn't help but be overjoyed. He cupped his hands and said, "That's just right. This junior also wants to see Jingbua City. If Senior Ching is interested, then this junior will disturb you. Don't mention it. We're all rogue cultivators. You don't need to be polite," Ching Fengmin said with a smile. Soon after, he slapped his forehead and said, "Look at me, I only thought about talking. I even forgot to introduce myself. Come, come, come. Let's introduce ourselves. From now on, we'll all be fellow Taoists in Heaven Forsaken." Xiao Hua and the other two didn't need to say anything. They had already reported their names just now. The first to speak was the fourth-layer qi refining cultivator who gave Ching Fengmin the idea just now. He wore an ochre-yellow Daoist robe, and his face was white and chubby. He looked quite young. "I, Ma Ching Cheng, greets the three fellow Taoist. Fellow Daoist Ma, you're experienced and knowledgeable. You've also seen many cultivation methods. There's no harm in you picking one or two that are suitable for fellow Daoist Xiao and revealing a little to him first. I see that fellow Daoist Xiao isn't a fool. It's definitely because his cultivation method and constitution are incompatible that he's been unable to advance for so long. If he can obtain a suitable cultivation method, he'll definitely become an expert in Heaven Forsaken," Ching Fengmin said with a smile as he pointed with his finger. "I know," Ma Ching Cheng replied with a smile. He flew in front of Xiao Hua and cupped his hands in greeting. Xiao Hua was grateful and also returned the greeting. "Fellow Daoist Xiao, I am a few years older and my cultivation is also a bit higher. My experience and cultivation can also be considered to be some insights. If fellow Daoist doesn't mind, you can ask me any questions." Ma Ching Cheng lifted Xiao Hua up and said with a smile, "In fact, many fellow Taoists were the same as fellow Daoist Xiao at the beginning. They all had some misgivings, but it turned out that their way of thinking was wrong. Fellow Daoist Xiao only needs to follow Heaven Forsaken's fellow Taoists for a period of time and you'll know whether what I said is correct or not." Xiao Hua hurriedly smiled apologetically and said, "Junior is afraid. Junior indeed has some misgivings in his heart, but, if there's something Junior doesn't know, I hope Senior can dispel my doubt. Junior thanks you in advance." No harm." Ma Ching Cheng waved his hand. "The world's loose cultivators are one family. This person is actually warm-hearted." Ching Fengmin only said he was a loose cultivator from Xi, but he suddenly spread it to the world. As expected, his amazing, Xiao Hua muttered inwardly. He couldn't forget Pai Lan and the twin bears, Chang Huan, and the others. It didn't matter who he was with. These people, he'd better kick them out of this house first. -5. Chapter 1290. Thump. Xiao Hua suddenly thought, these Pai Lan twin bears can't also be members of Heaven Forsaken. If that's the case, then I can't join Heaven Forsaken. Heaven Forsaken doesn't know there's no rule against killing each other. If the Pai Lan twin bears saw me and tried to kill me, who would stand up for me? At this time, Han Fei and Xiao Fengyu had already met several people from Heaven Forsaken under Ching Fengmin's introduction. Since Xiao Hua still hadn't expressed his position, the people from Heaven Forsaken could only salute him as a form of greeting. "Fellow Daoist Ching, this is a mental cultivation method that I comprehended. It's from a certain cultivation family in the state of Xi. It's only at the 4th level of qi refining." Xiao Fengyu was somewhat impatient. He patted the storage bag at his waist and took out a thick booklet, handing it over to Ching Fengmin. Ching Fengmin looked at it with a smile on his face. He didn't reach out to take it, but waved his hand slightly and said, "Fellow Daoist Xiao, don't be impatient. To join Heaven Forsaken, you must contribute your cultivation method. This is the rule, but it doesn't mean that I care about this cultivation method. All cultivation methods are obtained from rogue cultivators and benefit rogue cultivators. You don't need to be in a hurry to contribute this cultivation method. I have a permanent residence in Jingbua City, and there are many cultivation methods there. It won't be too late for fellow Daoist to take out the cultivation method when we arrive at Jingbua City together." Xiao Fengyue's face was full of smiles. Where was the slightest doubt? He nodded and said, "Fellow Daoist Qing is right. I will listen to fellow Daoist's arrangement." "Good, then let's go." Qing Fengmin glanced at Ma Qingcheng and Xiao Hua and said, "Fellow Daoist Ma, please guide fellow Daoist Xiao. His cultivation is shallow, I'm afraid he can't catch up to us." "I know." Ma Qingcheng nodded, then patted his hand and shot out a flight talisman. To Xiao Hua's surprise, this flight talisman was different from the ones he usually used. After Ma Qingcheng put the flight talisman on himself, it didn't disappear but floated in the air. "It's just a lot dimmer." Seeing Xiao Hua still standing to the side, Ma Qingcheng said to Xiao Hua, "Fellow Daoist Xiao, please use this half of the double flying talisman." "Hehe, it's just like the spell's spell. Double flying talisman?" When Xiao Hua heard the name of the flying talisman, he came to a realization. His finger moved slightly and a trace of magic power was sent over. Sure enough, the flying talisman flew onto Xiao Hua's body and suddenly disappeared. Xiao Hua sensed his surroundings and found nothing abnormal. Just as he was about to ask, he heard Qing Fengmin's loud voice. "Fellow Taoists, we're setting off now. It's estimated that we'll reach Jinghua City in 4 hours. I have already sent a message. I, Tian Qi, will hold a welcoming banquet in Huayun Park for everyone." Everyone smiled and said, "Fellow Daoist Qing, you're too polite." Immediately after, Qing Fengmin's figure flew away, and everyone else also followed. Only Ma Qingcheng was half a step slower. He said to Xiao Hua, "Fellow Daoist Xiao, get close to me. Just like normal flying, you only need to stay within 3 feet of I." Xiao Hua followed his words and stepped forward. Ma Qingcheng made a hand seal and his figure also flew up. Xiao Hua felt a force coming from under his feet and knew that the flying dual talisman had taken effect. Thus, he also slightly urged his magic power and his figure immediately chased after Ma Qingcheng at the same speed. This flying dual talisman is really strange. It can actually bring people along. Xiao Hua almost didn't use any magic power to follow beside Ma Qingcheng. He couldn't help but praise in his heart. Then, he thought of how he used his hand to pull Xiai Zhuoxia and madly flew away. That day, I didn't even use this flying dual talisman. She actually thought I was a nascent soul senior. Hehe, it's really funny. After flying for a while, Xiao Hua gradually discovered the benefits of having more people. Tian Qi and the other cultivators all seemed to be at the 4th or 5th layer of the Qi refining realm. If they came out alone, although they were a bit better than Xiao Hua who was hiding and restless, if they encountered some high-level cultivators, wouldn't they have to lower their altitude and carefully avoid them? But now, Qing Fengmin had brought nearly 10 cultivators with him. With Han Fei and the others, the group of more than 10 people could be considered mighty. Even if they encountered some high-level cultivators, they didn't need to panic too much. No wonder. Han Fei and Xiao Fengyu wanted to join Tian Qi. Not to mention anything else, just these loose cultivators gathered together will give them some courage. It's much better than being alone, Xiao Hua thought to himself. Just as he was thinking, a Foundation Establishment cultivator flew past at high speed in the distance. Although he wasn't flying in Xiao Hua's direction, Ma Qingcheng and the others still stopped and waited for the Foundation Establishment cultivator to fly away. Just as Xiao Hua and the others were quietly waiting, Qing Fengmin's figure flashed and unexpectedly went to greet him. Xiao Hua was greatly surprised. As a loose cultivator, Qing Fengmin actually knew this Foundation Establishment cultivator. Sure enough, looking from afar, Qing Fengmin saluted very respectfully. That cultivator also stopped and said a few words to Qing Fengmin before looking over. Ma Qingcheng and the others didn't dare to be negligent and all saluted respectfully from afar. When the Foundation Establishment cultivator saw this, he nodded slightly and waved his hand as a greeting. Then, his figure flashed and he flew away into the distance. Qing Fengmin stood with his hands clasped behind his back, not daring to move. He respectfully sent that cultivator off, then turned around and smiled at the people flying over. Qingmo City's elder fan is indeed courteous. I haven't seen you for a long time. I didn't expect to meet you here. Ah, this is Qingmo City's elder fan. Han Fei's face was extremely excited as he hurriedly said, Junior heard that this elder is a late-stage foundation establishment expert and is also the most promising elder in Qingmo City to advance to the golden core stage. I didn't expect that he's actually so amiable and approachable. Junior really doesn't dare to believe it. Yes, this is an expert who has advanced to the golden core stage. Junior, TSK, I don't know what to say. If Junior can. No, not to mention the golden core stage, even if I can reach the foundation establishment stage, I won't waste my life of cultivation. Qiao Fengyu also sighed. Haha, fellow Taoists, don't give up. We loose cultivators are also cultivators of the country of Xi. Since we can set foot on the path of cultivation, of course, we also have the hope of peeking into the foundation establishment stage and even the golden core stage. Just now, Senior Fan has already agreed that if he has time, he will come to Jingbo City's Huayun Park to guide our cultivation. Qing Fengmin said at the right time. Really? Hearing this, not only Han Fei, but even Ma Qingcheng and the others showed surprise and lack of confidence on their faces. Several people crowded around and asked, when will Senior Fan go to Jingbo City? Xiao Hua was stunned, but then he came to a realization. Loose cultivators relied on themselves for all their cultivation. There was no one to guide them, and the path of cultivation was quite bumpy. As the saying goes, the slightest difference can lead to 1,000 miles of error. As long as there was a little mistake in cultivation, it would directly affect the cultivation realm in the future. Although Elder Fan's cultivation method was different from that of the loose cultivators, if he could use the experience of his predecessors as a reference, he could avoid many wrong paths and save a lot of time. These were very convenient in the cultivation sects. When they were in Yellow Flower Ridge, Zhong Qingxiao often muttered in front of Xiao Hua. Although she had the intention of showing off, it also had a very important impact on Xiao Hua's cultivation. But this was impossible for loose cultivators. So, when they heard that there was actually a late foundation establishment stage senior coming to guide them, it was no wonder that they lost their composure like this. Hihi. Elder Fan is a senior expert. Naturally, there are many things. However, since he has said it, he will certainly keep his promise. It's just that the time is not fixed. Everyone, don't panic. If Senior Fan has the time, I will naturally inform everyone. I won't disappoint everyone by coming to my heavens forsaken. Qing Fengmin had a smile on his face, looking indifferent, as if inviting a late foundation establishment stage senior to come to heavens forsaken was not a difficult matter. When the others saw this, they were even more envious. They all bowed and thanked him. Senior Qing's righteousness, we will remember it in our hearts. If heavens forsaken orders, we will all obey. Ha ha ha, everyone is too polite. My heavens forsaken is a loose alliance. The most important thing is to support each other. How could there be any orders? Let's go, Jingbo City is not far ahead. It's better to enter the city early. Qing Fengmin flicked his sleeve and flew ahead. Everyone's faces were indescribably excited. They whispered to each other and also followed. Xiao Hua was a loose cultivator, so his feelings were naturally much less. Moreover, when he heard about foundation establishment stage cultivators, he very naturally thought of Xiao Yuhong. How could his expression still be excited? His expression was obviously completely different from the abnormally excited Ma Qingcheng. Ma Qingcheng was excited, but he naturally very keenly noticed Xiao Hua's expression. Extremely puzzled, he said, Fellow Daoist Xiao. I see that you don't seem happy because you saw Senior Fan. Why, do you look a little depressed? Xiao Hua was startled. He hurriedly smiled apologetically and said with a crying face, Senior, please understand. Seniors are all experts at the 5th or 6th layer of qi refining. Even if Senior Fan wants to give pointers, he will give pointers to seniors and others. With juniors' cultivation, I only need seniors' pointers. What difference does it make whether I see Senior Fan or not? Actually, Ma Qingcheng came to a realization. He patted Xiao Hua's shoulder and said, Fellow Daoist Xiao, don't give up. As long as you are willing to work hard and find a suitable cultivation method, whatever foundation establishment stage or golden core stage, they are all within reach. The corner of Xiao Hua's mouth almost twitched. This seems to be what Qing Fengmin said just now. Why did you suddenly use it on yourself? Thinking for a moment, Xiao Hua probed, Senior, Junior has a small question? Hehe, there's no harm in speaking. Even if it's a difficulty in cultivation, I won't hide it. Ma Qingcheng waved his hand and said with a smile. It's like this. Junior is a bit puzzled. Our country of Shi has many loose cultivators, between each other, presumably many of them have some grievances. But if everyone joins heaven forsaken, towards their grievances, how do they deal with it? Xiao Hua organized his words and asked vaguely. Hehe, about this, fellow Daoist Xiao's cultivation isn't deep. Could it be that you have a deep grudge with a cultivator? Ma Qingcheng wasn't surprised by Xiao Hua's question at all and asked with a smile. Not at all, not at all. With Junior's cultivation, even if I wanted to, I wouldn't dare. Xiao Hua shook his head and denied bluntly. It's just that I saw the grievances between Senior Han and Shong Hua Zong just now. That's why I was moved, that's all. -5. Chapter 1291. Temph. Jiang Huanqi is nothing more than a lowly disciple of the splendid sect. He has a master, a cultivation method, and someone to guide him to the 5th level of the aura refining realm. What is there to be proud of? When Ma Qingcheng heard this, a trace of disdain appeared on his face. If it weren't for the fact that he's a disciple of the splendid sect, how could fellow Daoist Qing be so humble? For the sake of fellow Daoist Han and fellow Daoist Qiao, he even offered up the precious things he obtained and took their lives. Hehe, if it were anyone else, do you think we wouldn't be able to take their lives? When Xiao Hua saw Ma Qingcheng's gentle appearance just now, he thought that Ma Qingcheng's nature was kind. Now that he heard these words, he suddenly realized that he was really wrong. This is the cultivation world, a place where strength is respected. Who could be kind? However, when he thought about it again, Ma Qingcheng's words were also extremely correct. Not to mention the splendid sect, one of the largest sects in the state of Shi, even the 10,000 Poisons sect, when they came to provoke Shong Huaming, didn't they also bring disciples at the 5th or 6th level of the aura refining realm? In the 100 Herbs sect, the disciples they sent were also around the 6th level of the aura refining realm. Senior's teachings are correct. Xiao Hua said with a smile. It's only because Senior Jiang has a master that he has nothing to fear and doesn't put us rogue cultivators in his eyes. That's right. Ma Qingcheng clapped his hands and said, it's precisely because of this that fellow Daoist Qing initiated this heaven abandonment. He wants to gather the rogue cultivators of the state of Shi together and make a tower out of sand to resist the persecution of the cultivation sect. Persecution? Xiao Hua stared blankly. This word was a bit subjective. Oh, I misspoke. Ma Qingcheng realized that he had said too much and immediately answered Xiao Hua's question. Actually, what fellow Daoist Xiao asked just now, this poor Daoist had also asked fellow Daoist Qing a long time ago. Which one of us rogue cultivators isn't struggling to survive? It was normal to offend 1 or 2 people. I had an irreconcilable enemy. Ahum, fellow Daoist Xiao will naturally find out about this in the future. Back then, the 2 of us were fighting over a cultivation method, and each of us used ruthless methods to try and kill the other. In the end, I was lucky enough to succeed, and only then was I able to cultivate to the 4th layer of aura refining using the cultivation method. As for that enemy of I, he was seriously injured and left. I originally thought that he definitely wouldn't be able to keep his life, but who would have thought that when I joined Heaven Forsaken last year, I actually discovered that this guy had also reached the 4th layer of aura refining, and had even joined Heaven Forsaken 1 step ahead of me. Ayo! Senior, did you guys make a move again? Xiao Hua asked urgently. What do you think? Ma Qingcheng looked at Xiao Hua with a smile and didn't answer. This? I don't think so. Xiao Hua's heart stirred, and he said with a smile, could it be that Senior shakes hands with him and makes peace, and a smile dissolves all enmity? Bullshit. Ma Qingcheng laughed loudly and cursed, Those are just jokes made by the secular world. I almost killed that person, so how could he possibly bury all enmity with a smile? Heh. Junior saw that Senior didn't seem to have made a move, so I took this as an excuse. Xiao Hua said embarrassedly. I naturally didn't make a move. As Ma Qingcheng flew forward, he looked at Qing Fengmin, who wasn't far ahead, and said in a low voice, "That day, I also followed fellow Daoist Qing to see my enemy. As soon as the two of us saw each other, we wanted to make a move, but we were still persuaded by fellow Daoist Qing. Could it be that Heaven Forsaken forbids individual cultivators from fighting? Although Xiao Hua knew that if he didn't ask, Ma Qingcheng would still tell him, but he still asked with a confused look. How could that be? Didn't fellow Daoist Qing say that Heaven Forsaken is just a loose alliance? They don't care about the individual behavior of individual cultivators. They only have some routine regulations to protect the mutual interests of Heaven Forsaken's members and to guarantee that individual cultivators won't harm Heaven Forsaken. As for the fights and enmity between each other, Heaven Forsaken doesn't stop them, Ma Qingcheng said with a smile. Seeing Xiao Hua scratching his head, Ma Qingcheng continued to say, "Actually, that day, fellow Daoist Qing didn't say anything. He only said 2 sentences. 2 sentences? Xiao Hua's curiosity was piqued. Yes, the first sentence was, Heaven Forsaken doesn't interfere with the enmity between individual cultivators. If you fight, whoever lives or dies, I won't interfere. The second sentence was, you're all in the 4th layer of the aura refining realm, so there's not much difference. Even if you fight to the death, the winner will definitely be seriously injured, and his cultivation will decline greatly. Now that you've taken out your cultivation methods, in my opinion, it'd be better to cultivate separately and wait until your cultivation far surpasses your opponent's before fighting." Ma Qingcheng raised his eyes and looked into the distance. It seemed that Qing Fengmin was the one who said those words. When Xiao Hua heard this, he inwardly nodded. Those 2 sentences were indeed to the point. When the two of us heard that, we couldn't help but feel enlightened. With Heaven Forsaken's cultivation methods, we no longer need to worry about cultivation methods. Instead of fighting on that day, it'd be better to see who reaches the foundation building realm first. At that time, killing the opponent would naturally be easy. Therefore, the two of us stopped fighting. Ma Qingcheng turned his head and looked at Xiao Hua. He said with a smile, "However, even though I have such thoughts, I don't know if the other side also has the same thoughts. When Heaven Forsaken is around, both sides will have some misgivings, so we just need to be a bit more careful." Right, fellow Daoist Xiao's worries are. Soon after, he saw Xiao Hua's awkward expression again. He slapped his forehead and said, "Look at me, I asked too much again." In fact, according to I's knowledge, Heaven Forsaken not only doesn't prevent individual cultivators from fighting, but also regularly organizes some martial arts competitions. On one hand, it can eliminate everyone's enmity, and on the other hand, it can also improve one's cultivation. Oh, right, the best thing Heaven Forsaken does is to often organize some large-scale activities. These are all carried out according to the information provided by some individual cultivators. Every member of Heaven Forsaken can participate. Who gets the benefits depends entirely on their own cultivation and luck. Some large-scale activities? Xiao Hua stared blankly and asked, "Senior, what do you mean? What large-scale activities?" Fellow Daoist Xiao is not a member of Heaven Forsaken, so of course I can't tell you these things. However, I can reveal a little. For example, the exquisite grass that fellow Daoist Han mentioned just now. He and fellow Daoist Chao's strength is not enough to search for it, so we can send this information to Heaven Forsaken. Heaven Forsaken can quickly gather enough people to search and harvest it together. Of course, fellow Daoist Han and fellow Daoist Chao can not only get a certain amount of compensation after the event, they can also go together with other fellow Daoist. Ma Qingcheng said mysteriously, "It is said that last year, before I joined Heaven Forsaken successfully organized hundreds of fellow Daoists in the periphery of Ink Jiao Black Forest, and found a cultivation method, some medicinal pills, and the remains of a magic weapon." Ink Jiao Black Forest? Magic weapon remains? Xiao Hua was even more stunned. Hehe, these are all rumors I heard. Individual cultivators who didn't participate in these things are not very clear about these things. Ma Qingcheng laughed. However, I heard that the fellow Daoist who obtained this cultivation method has already cultivated to about the 10th level of qi refining. Senior, this cultivation method, don't you need to contribute it to Heaven Forsaken? Of course not. Only at the beginning of Heaven Forsaken must contribute one's own cultivation method. After that, everything obtained will naturally be one's own. Ma Qingcheng said in all seriousness, if it was all given to Heaven Forsaken, who would go and risk their lives? You don't know, fellow Daoist Xiao, I heard that on that day, only 10 of the 100 fellow Daoists returned. Ma Qingcheng said in a low voice again, however, we individual cultivators live precarious lives. This kind of risk can still be taken. If we were like the fellow Daoist last year, who obtained the cultivation method and medicinal pills, we would immediately be able to reach the sky in a single bound. If we were alone, which qi refining level 7 individual cultivator would dare to go to Jiao Black Forest? Even if it was the periphery, it still wouldn't do. Xiao Hua was silent. In the end, only 10 of the 100 individual cultivators returned. 90 people were buried in the so-called Jiao Black Forest's periphery. This was really not an ordinary risk. Moreover, looking at Ma Qingcheng's appearance, he was actually extremely envious of the individual cultivators who were able to participate. If he had entered Heaven Forsaken that day, presumably he would have already gone to Jiao Black Forest. Oh, right, Senior, where is Jiao Black Forest? Why do qi refining level 7 individual cultivators not dare to go to the periphery? Xiao Hua asked. Hehe, what is your cultivation level? When fellow Daoist Xiao enters Heaven Forsaken, you should first raise your cultivation level to qi refining level 5. Otherwise, even if I take you there, you would have died in vain. Ma Qingcheng's words were not pleasant to hear, but there was no contempt in his tone. Xiao Hua knew his own cultivation level, so it was not good for him to ask too much. How about it? Fellow Daoist Xiao, do you have any other questions? Ma Qingcheng said with a smile, Jingbua City is just ahead. I spoke until my mouth and tongue became dry. I don't know what fellow Daoist Xiao has thought about it. In fact, as long as fellow Daoist Xiao enters Heaven Forsaken, you will quickly find out. There is simply no need to inquire everywhere like before. Xiao Hua's heart was truly moved. Whether it was listening to Qing Fengmin's introduction or Ma Qingcheng's explanation, no matter what, entering the Heaven Forsaken realm would only bring him benefits and no harm. It was only the Death Flower and Underworld cultivation method. However, just as he was about to nod his head, the image of Xiao Yuhong lazily lying down on Yellow Blossom Ridge and basking in the sun immediately flashed through his mind. 3 years. 3 years after he gained his memories, Yellow Blossom Ridge was like his home. Taking out the things at home to share with others, Xiao Hua always felt very awkward. I seem to be very stingy. Xiao Hua couldn't help but think. Hehe, forget it, fellow Daoist Xiao, there is no need to force yourself. Heaven Forsaken has always adhered to the principle of voluntary participation. When you think it through one day, you can send a message to I at any time. Ma Qingcheng knew that Xiao Hua definitely had some unknown misgivings in his heart, but no matter how much he thought about it, he absolutely could not imagine that the root cause was Xiao Hua's own unknown stinginess. Thank you for your magnanimity, Senior. Xiao Hua didn't use too much magic power. He followed Ma Qingcheng all the way, so of course he was grateful. No need to be polite. Everyone cultivated from the first level of qi refining, Ma Qingcheng said with a smile. Then, he clapped his hand and took out a scarlet-yellow talisman from his storage bag. He handed it over and said, "This is I's summoning talisman. If there is anything, you can send a message to I." "Thank you, Senior." Xiao Hua respectfully received it. Xiao Hua put away the summoning talisman, but Ma Qingcheng still looked at him, making Xiao Hua feel very unnatural. After a long while, he heard Ma Qingcheng ask, "Could it be that fellow Daoist Xiao doesn't plan on giving I a summoning talisman?" -5. Chapter 1292. Hearing this, Xiao Hua stared blankly. His face flushed red, and he hurriedly waved his hand. Senior misunderstands. It's not that Junior doesn't want to give, it's, Junior simply doesn't have a messaging talisman. You don't have a messaging talisman? Ma Qingcheng was greatly surprised. Yes, Junior hasn't been to Yi City and hasn't bought a messaging talisman. Only now did Xiao Hua realize that he had never asked Gong Mingwei or Zhong Qingxiao where their messaging talismans came from. And the messaging talismans he used were all casually given by Zhong Qingxiao. Fart. Ma Qingcheng couldn't help but laugh out loud, and Xiao Hua's face became even redder. Sorry, fellow Daoist Xiao. I really didn't expect that fellow Daoist actually hasn't been to Yi City. And, you haven't refined a messaging talisman. Ma Qingcheng cupped his hands in apology, but then he laughed again. I really don't know how fellow Daoist Xiao cultivated these past 10 years. Xiao Hua murmured, but didn't say anything. After laughing enough, Ma Qingcheng said, this messaging talisman is different from other yellow talismans. Messaging talismans don't require extremely high cultivation. Any blank talisman paper can be refined, and it doesn't require any special talisman brush or talisman ink. If it's at Yi City, you only need to use an extremely small amount of low-grade spirit stones to exchange for a lot of already refined messaging talismans. You only need a trace of your own magic power to turn the blank messaging talisman into your own. Oh, right, since fellow Daoist Xiao is a loose cultivator and hasn't been to Yi City, of course you don't have blank talisman paper, let alone a blank messaging talisman. As Ma Qingcheng spoke, he slapped his hand and took out a small stack of yellow paper from his storage pouch, handing it over. He said, this is a blank talisman paper. Your cultivation is low, so you naturally can't refine other yellow talismans, but it's more than enough to refine a messaging talisman. Xiao Hua took the talisman paper and said with a smile, thank you, senior. No need. These talisman papers are of the lowest grade. They were refined by I myself and aren't worth any spirit stones. You can use them. As Ma Qingcheng spoke, he taught Xiao Hua the incantation to refine a message talisman. There are many ways to refine a message talisman. Us loose cultivators have low magic power. My incantation is also passed down among loose cultivators. Every member of Heaven Forsaken knows about it. You can ask around and you'll know. Xiao Hua's messaging talisman. Ma Qingcheng. Ma Qingcheng's every word. Ma Qingcheng's every word. Xiao Hua listened to Ma Qingcheng's mnemonic chant. It wasn't difficult, but it required a bit of skill, as if it was tailor-made for low-level cultivators. Xiao Hua closed his eyes and pondered for a moment. Then, Xiao Hua urged his magic power to pick up a talisman paper and refine a messaging talisman. But in the instant his magic power surged, Xiao Hua's heart stirred. He suppressed 90% of his magic power, using only 10% to refine the talisman. This is Xiao Hua's first time refining a yellow talisman, and his flying in the air. Ma Qingcheng also had a bitter smile on his face. He didn't want Xiao Hua to refine it on the spot. He only wanted Xiao Hua to leave the item behind and wait until they reached Jinghua City. After Xiao Hua finished refining, he would first send a message to Ma Qingcheng so that Ma Qingcheng could go and get it. But looking at Xiao Hua's refining technique, although it was a bit unfamiliar, the incantation was extremely smooth. Many of the areas he wanted to point out were completed with extreme ease. It was as if this messaging talisman was a piece of cake for Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua's right hand's finger moved, sending out the last strand of magic power. Kai. A faint sound rang out. The yellow talisman paper was covered with a faint talisman. Moreover, the talisman paper turned crimson red. This. Although Ma Qingcheng had long been prepared, seeing the messaging talisman successfully refined, he couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Messaging talismans were the lowest level yellow talismans in the cultivation world, but they were still yellow talismans. Since they were yellow talismans, they had to involve talismans and incantations. This wasn't something that could be completed by purely relying on magic power. To a large extent, it depended on the refiner's comprehension of cultivation. The messaging talismans used by rogue cultivators were admittedly much simpler. The requirements for refining were also much lower. As long as one was at the first level of aura refining and had magic power, they could refine it. But 100 first level aura refining, no, 1,000 rogue cultivators at the third level and below, if they wanted to refine a messaging talisman, they wouldn't be able to refine it without several attempts. Ma Qingcheng had given Xiao Hua that stack of talismans for practice. Ma Qingcheng absolutely couldn't have imagined that Xiao Hua, with his cultivation at the second level of aura refining, would actually be able to successfully refine a messaging talisman in one try. What's wrong? Senior, could it be that there was something wrong with Junior's technique? Xiao Hua was somewhat perturbed, but he was even more astonished and uneasy in his heart. This was because when he was refining the messaging talisman just now, he once again felt that extremely familiar feeling he had when he saw Xiao Yuhong use the alchemy incantation in Shi Hua Peak's pill room. This alchemy incantation for refining the messaging talisman was the same as Xiao Yuehong's alchemy incantation that he had seen before. Although it looked very unfamiliar, when Xiao Hua truly used it, he felt that it was very natural. Some of the incantations or details that he hadn't yet completely comprehended in his mind were smoothly displayed when he used his fingers to pinch them together. And when these incantations were made with his fingers, Xiao Hua's mind immediately understood. It was as if he had once cultivated this incantation before, but in his mind, there was no impression. When Xiao Hua saw Ma Qingcheng's astonishment, he thought even more about Zhong Qingxiao's suspicions that day. Sure enough, Ma Qingcheng opened his mouth and said a few words, but he didn't say anything. In the end, he exerted all his strength and said, "Fellow Daoist Xiao, this is your first time refining a messaging talisman?" As expected, Xiao Hua inwardly cursed. After thinking for a moment, he could only brace himself and reply, reporting to Senior Ma, "This is indeed Junior's first time. Otherwise, how could I not even have my own messaging talisman?" But. After saying but a few times, Ma Qingcheng smiled bitterly and said, "I finally understand why fellow Daoist Qing valued fellow Daoist Xiao so much and insisted that I persuade fellow Daoist Xiao to join my heaven forsaken. It seems that fellow Daoist Qing had long seen through fellow Daoist Xiao's peculiarity." When Xiao Hua heard this, his heart thumped, and he inwardly regretted his rashness. "But, this Senior Qing, how did you see that I am different from others?" Xiao Hua inwardly muttered again. After thinking for a moment, Xiao Hua smiled and said, "Senior Ma, please don't flatter Junior. Junior being able to refine it in one go, I'm afraid it has something to do with the few pages I read a few years ago. Junior remembers that those pages only had a few spells that were similar to this messaging talisman. As for what they were used for, they were all incomplete. Junior didn't have a cultivation technique to practice, so I practiced those spells until I was proficient." "Is that so?" Ma Qingcheng seemed to not believe it. As he flew, he frowned and pondered. After a moment, he still raised his head and waved his hand at Xiao Hua, saying, "Fellow Daoist Xiao might not know, but this messaging talisman is admittedly simple. However, if you're not at the third level of qi refining and have a certain understanding of cultivation, even if you've memorized these spells and techniques, it's still impossible to successfully refine it in one go. You have to practice more. Even if fellow Daoist Xiao has memorized many spells, if you don't practice them on talisman paper, you definitely won't be able to easily use them." Xiao Hua complained in his heart. How could he know this? Alas, in the future, I won't be able to casually use these spells in front of others anymore. Xiao Hua's intestines were green with regret. He really didn't want to attract attention. However, although fellow Daoist Xiao can successfully refine the messaging talisman in one go, your magic power is still ordinary. This messaging talisman can only be used within a dozen or so li. If it's any further, it won't work. Fellow Daoist Xiao, you should still come to my heavens forsaken to find a suitable cultivation technique and properly raise your realm, Ma Qingcheng advised earnestly. Xiao Hua saw that Ma Qingcheng took the initiative to change the topic and hurriedly said with a smile, "Junior is indeed slow-witted." This cultivation technique, without waiting for him to finish speaking, Ma Qingcheng's face revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. He clapped his hands and said, "Haha, fellow Daoist Xiao, I remember now. You don't need to contribute a cultivation technique to enter my heavens forsaken. Ah, there's such a good thing." When Xiao Hua heard this, he was also overjoyed. Nonsense, he didn't need to take out any cultivation technique and could comprehend other people's cultivation techniques for free. How could he not be happy? Of course. Ma Qingcheng looked at Xiao Hua with a card up his sleeve and said, "Fellow Daoist Qing also said just now that in the process of my cultivation as a rogue cultivator, what I lack the most are cultivation techniques and medicinal pills. These words are not false, but apart from these two, there are still other things that are extremely necessary. Yellow talisman?" Since it was said like this, even if Xiao Hua didn't understand, he could also know that it was a yellow talisman. Yes, fellow Daoist Xiao's mind is indeed sharp. It's precisely a yellow talisman. Previously, I said that cultivation techniques can be taken out and comprehended together, but medicinal pills and yellow talismans can't be taken out and used together. Every sect has their own alchemy and talisman-making techniques. Although I, Heavens Forsaken, don't have my own spells, rogue cultivators who are proficient in these two spells are still extremely needed. So it's like this. Xiao Hua's little tail secretly curled up. I didn't expect that I would also become a talent that others lack. Of course, this talisman-making technique still needs fellow Daoist Qing's examination. If fellow Daoist Xiao knows alchemy, I can guarantee right now that there's simply no need for any test. I can immediately bring fellow Daoist Xiao into my Heavens Forsaken, and Heavens Forsaken cultivation techniques can be comprehended by fellow Daoist Xiao. Ma Qingcheng was still somewhat unsatisfied and said somewhat regretfully. When Xiao Hua heard this, he inwardly curled his lips. "Alchemy, forget it. Even if you beat me to death, I won't reveal it again." Right, according to Senior Ma's meaning, if this junior enters Heavens Forsaken, for the time being, you still can't let this junior choose all the cultivation techniques? Xiao Hua asked. Yes. Fellow Daoist Xiao, you also know that alchemists are much more scarce than talisman makers. Up until now, I, Heavens Forsaken, only have a dozen or so talisman makers, and not a single alchemist. Although fellow Daoist Xiao can easily refine messaging talismans, after all, it's only said that you might have this ability. Whether or not you can actually become a talisman maker will still have to depend on your future cultivation. Therefore, I, Heavens Forsaken, can't immediately give the cultivation techniques to fellow Daoist Xiao to comprehend. It can only depend on fellow Daoist Xiao's progress, or on fellow Daoist Xiao's contribution to my Heavens Forsaken, and how many yellow talismans you refine for the rogue cultivators of my Heavens Forsaken, to decide how many cultivation techniques I'll give fellow Daoist Xiao to comprehend. -5. Chapter 1293. Oh, so that's how it is. Xiao Hua secretly calculated whether or not he should join the Forsaken Heavens. Since the Forsaken Heavens valued talisman masters so much, even if he was seen by the Blue Bears, they probably wouldn't dare to make a move. Then, Senior Ma, talisman masters are protected by the Forsaken Heavens, right? Xiao Hua was still not at ease. Of course. Fellow Daoist Xiao, please rest assured. Talisman masters are very respected in the Forsaken Heavens. If any rogue cultivator makes things difficult for a talisman master, they will definitely be attacked by the other rogue cultivators. Ma Qingcheng seemed to know that Xiao Hua would ask this question. Alas, I still exposed some things. Xiao Hua saw Ma Qingcheng's expression and knew that some of the words just now had already fallen into his ears. Thinking for a moment, Xiao Hua was about to ask again when he suddenly heard Ma Qingcheng say with a smile, "Fellow Daoist Xiao, let's not talk about it for the time being. Look, Jingbua City is just ahead. When we reach Hua Yun Park, I will explain in detail to fellow Daoist Xiao." So fast. Xiao Hua was stunned. Following the direction of Ma Qingqing's finger, he looked and couldn't help but be stunned. After looking for a moment, he stuttered, "Senior Ma, this is Jingbua City." "Hehe, of course, this is our state of Xi's famous Jingbua City," Ma Qingqing said with a smile. "Isn't it very unexpected? Did you not expect Jingbua City to look like a large mirror made up of countless small mirrors?" "Yes, indeed, it is somewhat unexpected," Xiao Hua answered honestly. "I guess this is also the origin of Jingbua City's name. Let's go, fellow Daoist Qing is already slowly descending. Let's hurry over." Ma Qingqing urged his magic power and flew down with Xiao Hua, but Xiao Hua was still looking into the distance, somewhat lost in thought. Xiao Hua couldn't help but be shocked. He had never left Yellow Flower Ridge and had heard about Jingbua City for 3 years. He only knew that there was a city here. In his impression, it was just the appearance of a city, even similar to the appearance of a town in the secular world. But now that he saw the real Jingbua City, he knew that he was wrong, extremely wrong. What kind of city would that be? No, Jingbua City should not be seen as a city, because from a high vantage point, it was a huge lake. The lake was divided into countless small grids. There were so many grids that it was impossible to count them all. The shapes of the grids were also strange. Some were triangular, some were rectangular, and some were diamond-shaped. Most of them were irregular shapes. From the air, these tiny lattices were folded and sparkling under the midday sun. They were like tiny mirrors, with a tiny sun in each of them. The huge lake formed by all the tiny lattices formed a huge mirror, reflecting all the sunlight. It was like a huge sun on the ground. "This is also called a city?" Xiao Hua was almost mumbling to himself. In fact, he himself didn't know where he saw the city he thought it was. However, as he gradually flew lower and closer, Xiao Hua was shocked to find that he was wrong again. Every tiny lattice in Jingbua City was not really tiny, but every lattice was a huge lake. On the lake, there were countless, immortal treasures that looked like small boats. They seemed to wander casually, but in a very orderly manner. Every lake was separated by an extremely wide land. On the land, there were many towers and houses, as well as spacious street. On the streets, in the towers, and even on the small boats, there were many cultivators strolling about. Occasionally, several cultivators with extremely high cultivation would fly across the streets and between the lakes. However, beyond the huge lake, there was a flat area about 10,000 feet away from the edge. There were also many people here, but they all converged into a stream of people and flowed in a dozen directions nearby. Among these people, some were walking out from the lake, and some were walking in from the outside. Outside the lake, there were many cultivators like Xiao Hua flying in from all directions. After landing in the air, they walked forward. They also converged into a stream of people and walked towards the edge of the lake in an orderly manner. However, when all the people reached an oval-shaped area at the edge of the lake, they all gathered at a dozen points and slowly passed through the invisible places. Xiao Hua suddenly came to a realization. Perhaps these dozen or so points are the city gates for entering and exiting? Then, Xiao Hua squinted his eyes and looked at the transparent sky above Jingbua City. The strong noon sun pierced straight into Jingbua City, but he couldn't see anything unusual. However, Xiao Hua already understood that there must be an extremely powerful city protection array protecting the entire Jingbua City. Sure enough, seeing Xiao Hua's dumbstruck and curious expression, Qing Fengmin chuckled and said in a low voice, "Fellow Daoist Xiao, this Jingbua City looks very spacious. Any early-stage aura refining individual cultivator can drive straight in. However, as you can see, only a few people can fly in Jingbua City. Everyone else has to walk honestly. Fellow Daoist, this is your first time in Jingbua City, so you should be careful. In Jingbua City, cultivators below the nascent soul stage cannot fly. Hehe, in fact, even if you want to fly, Jingbua City's great formation will suppress you. You absolutely can't fly. Oh, speaking of Jingbua City's great formation, don't think that we can see through Jingbua City with a glance. Above Jingbua City is the famous Nine Flames Myriad Winds Great Formation, passed down from ancient times. combined with Jinghua City's heart-purifying great formation, water, fire, and wind blend together. Even nascent soul-stage old devils wouldn't dare to underestimate it. 9 flames myriad winds great formation? Heart-purifying great formation? Xiao Hua was slightly stunned. Didn't Xiao Yuhong mention it? In Dawn Rain Continent, formations had already been lost. How could there be 2 great formations in Jinghua City? He thought for a moment, but still didn't ask. He only smiled and said, the 9 flames myriad winds great formation should be above Jinghua City. Then, where is the so-called heart-purifying great formation? Fellow Daoist Xiao has talent in the art of talisman crafting. Presumably, you have exceptional aptitude. I won't say anything for now. Fellow Daoist might as well take a look first. Ma Qingcheng unexpectedly kept him guessing. This. Xiao Hua was somewhat speechless. He could only narrow his eyes and carefully look. Ayo. Xiao Hua suddenly understood. He pointed at the countless lattices and cried out, Senior, could it be that each and every lake is a great formation? As expected. Ma Qingcheng's smile became even wider, and he almost gave a thumbs up. When I came here for the first time, I was dizzy from these countless small mirrors swaying about. How could I still carefully identify them? Fellow Daoist Xiao actually hit the nail on the head, truly amazing. I dare not. Junior was just casually guessing. Xiao Hua hurriedly declined. However, what fellow Daoist said is also correct and also incorrect. Ma Qingcheng changed the topic and pointed at Jinghua City. It said that this Jinghua City was originally a huge lake. In ancient times, a cultivator with great divine abilities used a divine ability that could move mountains and drain seas to lay down a great formation. That great formation is in the lake, which is also right below Jinghua City. Oh! This Jinghua City is actually above a lake. Xiao Hua was stunned. This was something he didn't expect. This, ancient times, when was it? Hearing Ma Qingcheng mention the ancient times twice, Xiao Hua also paid attention. However, after thinking for a moment, he still restrained himself from asking. All right, fellow Daoist Xiao, please calm down. Now that we're already in the vicinity of Jinghua City, we still have to be a bit more respectful. Ma Qingcheng saw Qing Fengmin and the others descend again, and he also solemnly warned Xiao Hua. Calm down. Respectful? Xiao Hua was slightly taken aback and thought to himself, entering Jinghua City, we still have to be respectful. Could it be? Just as he was thinking, Ma Qingcheng descended, and Xiao Hua even more didn't dare to make a sound. Qing Fengmin and the others landed on the ground from afar. Just like the cultivators Xiao Hua saw just now, they were really quiet, and no one spoke much. Everyone tidied up their clothes and was about to move forward when Ma Qingcheng shouted in a low voice, Fellow Daoist Qing, please wait a moment. What's the matter? Qing Fengmin was obviously a bit unhappy. Ma Qingcheng ignored him and walked to Qing Fengmin's side, pulled him to the side, and whispered in his ear. Xiao Hua knew that he was talking about him. Sure enough, Qing Fengmin suddenly turned around and stared straight at Xiao Hua. There was some surprise and joy on his face, and even more disbelief. Then, Qing Fengmin looked back at Ma Qingcheng and whispered a few words, then lowered his head and pondered for a moment. When he raised his head again, he had already returned to his original state and brought Ma Qingcheng to Xiao Hua's side. Fellow Daoist Xiao, this is not the place to talk. Wait until we enter Jinghua City, then we'll talk about this matter at Huayun Park. Qing Fengmin's voice was still as harmonious as before. I'll listen to Senior's instructions. Xiao Hua cupped his hands and said. The dozens of people at the side looked on in surprise, not knowing what was going on. Let's go. Qing Fengmin didn't say much, waved his hand, and led the way. Seeing this, everyone didn't dare to ask any more questions. They followed behind Qing Fengmin, and gradually merged into the flow of people in Jinghua City. Xiao Hua followed Ma Qingcheng and walked at the back of the crowd. He curiously snuck furtive glances all around while thinking about how to deal with the matter of heaven's relinquishment. Beneath Xiao Hua's feet was an ordinary mountain at first, but after walking for a while, it became a huge bluestone. When he stepped on it, he felt a slight heat. This place was still far from Jingbua City. At a glance, all he could see was a stretch of light blue stone. This caused Xiao Hua to be quite flabbergasted, and he inwardly grumbled, this. Just how much thought did it take? Just how many blue stones did it take to pave? He slightly turned his head again. Behind him were several cultivators around the 4th level of qi condensation, but they appeared to be only a little over 10 years old. Each and every one of their small faces revealed pleasant surprise and curiosity. Their expressions were even more wonderful than Xiao Hua's. As for these middle-aged cultivators around the 11th level of qi condensation, they vigilantly looked all around. When they saw Xiao Hua turn his head back, they coldly stared at him, their gazes revealing contempt. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian.com to vote for it. -5. Chapter 1294. What tilde is this necessary? Xiao Hua was naturally even more vigilant. Seeing the warning eyes of the nearby 11th level qi refinement cultivators, Xiao Hua was truly speechless. He muttered, "This young master also had a sect a month ago. It's not any worse than yours." However, looking at the 11th level qi refinement cultivators and the 4th level qi refinement children, Xiao Hua knew that this sect was definitely more famous than Shong Huaming. Sure enough, Ma Qincheng, who was walking beside him, sensed it. He pulled Xiao Hua's sleeve and said in a low voice, "Fellow Daoist Xiao, these are the disciples of Xuanyan School. Don't provoke them." Xuanyan School? One of the 3 great cultivation sects in the country of Xi? Xiao Hua was shocked and glanced at them even more. Well, one of the boys seemed to have noticed and glared at Xiao Hua. "See, Xuanyan School is very unfriendly to us loose cultivators. Fellow Daoist Xiao should stay away from them." Ma Qincheng seemed to be used to it and explained. Not only that. Even small sects like Shong Huaming are very wary of loose cultivators. Xiao Hua muttered and quickly walked forward. Whoosh! A violent wind blew over the heads of Xiao Hua and the others. Without waiting for Xiao Hua to raise his head, he saw a figure fly over his head and go straight ahead. Not only Xiao Hua, but the surrounding people were also in an uproar. Who is this senior? He actually dares to fly outside Jingbua City? A 10th level qi refinement cultivator blurted out. That's right. Who is so daring to not give face to Jingbua City? Not giving face to Jingbua City is not giving face to Elder Mu Qiong, not giving face to City Lord Liu. But Elder Mu Qiong and City Lord Liu seem to be mid-nascent soul cultivators. Just now, that figure seems to be an elder of Lan Li sect, a foundation establishment cultivator said. This is Lan Li sect's 3rd elder, Daoist Master Zhua Ming. He is a mid-nascent soul senior. He has a good relationship with Elder Mu Qiong. Directly flying over like this is not a taboo. An old man whose cultivation Xiao Hua couldn't see through said in a deep voice. Hihi, fellow Daoist Chen is right. The other old man couldn't hold himself back and said, Senior Zhua Ming is a nascent soul stage cultivator, his strength is there. Even if his friendship with City Lord Liu is shallow, can City Lord Liu stop him if he flies over? If it wasn't for his old friendship with Elder Mu Qiong, perhaps City Lord Liu would have to go out of the city to welcome him. Fellow Daoist Zhong, you're here too? Hihi, in other places, Aurus core stage cultivators like us can directly enter, but this Jingbua city just doesn't allow it. This is really annoying. Chen Daoyu said in a low voice. Sure, lower your voice. Zhong Daoyu smiled and said, Jingbua city is powerful and has countless disciples. They are not inferior to the 3 major sects in the country of Xi. Small sects like us. Let's not talk too much. Hehe, isn't that so? Look at Xuanyan School. Their disciples will have to walk into the city with the others, so we don't have to regret anything. Golden core stage cultivator. Xiao Hua understood and looked over. Not only him, but everyone at the side also looked at these 2 old men. However, although Xiao Hua couldn't see the cultivation of these 2 old men, he felt that their cultivation wasn't much higher than Xiao Yuehong's. How could they only be golden core stage cultivators? If these two old men didn't say anything, wouldn't Xiao Hua still treat them as ordinary people of the secular world? This is really strange. Just now, that so-called nascent soul stage senior, although he didn't stop in midair, I could clearly feel the pressure emanating from his body. These two Aurus core stage seniors, why couldn't they feel it? Xiao Hua muttered in his heart. The surroundings had already returned to tranquility. Everyone was a cultivator, so of course they knew the importance of strength. Besides some envy in their hearts, they could only bury their heads and hurry on their way. Xiao Hua slightly turned around and inadvertently saw that the group of young disciples from Xuanyan school behind him, the disciple who glared at him just now, was still looking in the direction Reverend Zhuoming flew past with a solemn expression. Hey! This little guy! Why does he have such an expression? It's different from the envy and curiosity of others. Xiao Hua had just thought this when that disciple seemed to have noticed. He immediately lowered his head and glared at Xiao Hua a few more times. Did I provoke you? Xiao Hua curled his lips and ignored him, continuing to walk forward with the others. The further they went, the more they felt the strangeness of Jingbua City. An invisible force pressed down on Xiao Hua's body from very far away, becoming heavier and heavier. However, when they arrived in front of a strangely shaped brilliance that was over 100 zhong wide, that force suddenly disappeared at some unknown time. Xiao Hua saw that the others were silent, so he didn't dare to ask, only using his eyes to look at everything in front of him. That was an indescribable brilliance. Its edges were faintly lavender and aqua blue alternating. The brilliance was like ripples of water, rippling in circles, boundlessly spreading into the sky above Jingbua City. The brilliance was like 100 zhong wide door, but also like 100 zhong wide bronze mirror. The cultivators who approached it walked in without hesitation, leaving behind a blurry figure on the brilliance. It seemed like a back view, but if you looked carefully, it was different, because that back view didn't move. Hurriedly, it was the backs of other people waiting, one by one. This Jingbua City's entrance is quite strange. Xiao Hua was very curious. He didn't have the divine sense of a foundation establishment cultivator, so he could only see with his eyes. When he walked into the brilliance, he suddenly saw that within the brilliance, in midair, there seemed to be a dozen or so cultivators wearing strange clothing. These cultivators were all at the 10th layer of qi condensation, and there were even a few at the 11th layer. They all strangely floated in the air above the brilliance, their bodies swaying at will with the brilliance. Moreover, their expressions were cold as they looked down on the cultivators passing through the brilliance, their bodies occasionally pacing from one place to another. It was as if they were the guards of this Jingbua City's entrance. Soon, it was Ma Qingcheng and Xiao Hua's turn. Ma Qingcheng didn't hesitate at all, plunging head first into the brilliance, leaving behind a broad back view. Xiao Hua glanced at it, and just as he was about to step forward, the dozen or so little boys from Xuanyan school laughed and ran a few steps. As if they were playing, they pounced forward with puff 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 sounds. In an instant, the dozen or so figures of different appearances were imprinted on the brilliance, causing the surrounding cultivators who were about to pass through to cover their mouths and laugh. In a flash, Xiao Hua's tense heart suddenly relaxed. In the cultivation world, in the bloody cultivation world, there was still no lack of childlike innocence. Perhaps, in many inconspicuous places of every sect, there was an extreme amount of joy. For example, Shong Huaming, the small cave that Zhong Qingxiao once drilled into. When Xiao Hua passed through the Jingbua City's entrance, his eyes clearly lit up, and his ears also rang. Countless lights and countless sounds appeared, much more lively than the silence from a moment ago. Before Xiao Hua had time to look into the distance, he saw Ma Qingcheng standing before him, all smiles. The dozen or so little boys who had just run in were to his front left, scrambling to be the first to run to the lakeside. There seemed to be several small boats quietly moored by the lakeside. Around the boys were several of their senior brothers with relaxed faces, and there were also others who were hurrying in all directions. Fellow Daoist Xiao, please come this way. Ma Qingcheng saw Xiao Hua enter, and didn't deliberately lower his voice. Senior Ma, please go first. Xiao Hua said politely. Qing Fengmin was already waiting in front. When he saw Ma Qingcheng bring Xiao Hua over, he beamed and said, "Fellow Daoist Xiao, I've thought about your matter for a moment. I should invite fellow Daoist to Heaven-Forsaken's Cloud Garden and let I and a talisman master take a careful look. After all, a messaging talisman, as long as one's cultivation reaches a certain level, they can refine it. What do you think, fellow Daoist?" Xiao Hua was somewhat hesitant, but there was nothing he could do, unless he didn't plan on joining Heaven-Forsaken. "I'll listen to Senior Qing's instructions," Xiao Hua said with a smile. "Yen, that's good. Fellow Daoist Xiao, please follow us to Cloud Garden first." Qing Fengmin also didn't waste time, and brought everyone straight ahead. When Han Fei and the others saw Xiao Hua following them again, they knew that the situation had changed, and couldn't help but mutter in their hearts. "Hey! This Jingbua city's streets are admittedly incomparably spacious, and many people don't feel crowded walking inside, but, the houses on both sides of the street, why are they like the shops of the secular world? Many of them are two-story small buildings. There's even a very simple shop." Xiao Hua looked all around as he walked, and he was also bewildered in his heart, looking at what's written on the shop front. Some are yellow talismans, some are medicinal pills, and some are spiritual herbs. Yen, there's also repairing magic tools and weapons. What's the difference between this and Yi City? Why did eldest senior brother and the others have to wait until Yi City to come? Normally, they could just come and trade with these shops at any time. Of course, no one answered Xiao Hua's doubts, and he also wouldn't foolishly ask other people. "Hey, there's a shabby yellow talisman shop here." Xiao Hua's eyes were sharp, and he had already seen a small shop with a shabby wooden signboard hanging in a corner. On the signboard was a large talisman. In the shop, there was an old man whose cultivation couldn't be seen. He was wearing a felt hat, and he was sitting at the entrance with his hands crossed and his head lowered. The warm sunlight shone on the old man's body, and he seemed to be taking a nap. Ayo tilde I. In Xiao Hua's mind, an immature thought suddenly flashed through, and a trace of joy immediately appeared on his face. However, he immediately withdrew his gaze from the yellow talisman shop, lowered his head, and suppressed his emotions. He quickly walked a few steps and caught up with Ma Qingcheng. Tianqi seemed to have a certain reputation in Jingbua City. At first, no one greeted Qing Fengmin, but after walking for a while, the number of people who greeted him gradually increased, and the number of times Qing Fengmin stopped also gradually increased. Xiao Hua was somewhat impatient, but Ma Qingcheng's face was somewhat radiant, and he said in a low voice, "Look, fellow Daoist Qing really has a wide range of connections. There are actually so many old friends in Jingbua City. No wonder he can grasp all the news in the state of Xi in a timely manner. It's really not simple." Xiao Hua first curled his lips. All he cared about was how to improve his cultivation, and he didn't have much patience for any social interaction. But then, Xiao Hua's heart stirred again. -5. Chapter 1295. Looks like Tianqi. I really have to join. With Senior Qing's information, I'll definitely find out the truth behind 100 Herbs Gate's destruction of my Shong Huaming. Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and thought to himself, but 100 Herbs Gate is obviously the mastermind and the beneficiary. Even if Tianqi knows about this, what can he do? Tianqi is just a group of loose cultivators. They're all in the Qi refining stage, far weaker than 100 Herbs Gate. And the matter of avenging the Gate Master and my two senior brothers still falls on me. Before I have any confidence, I can't reveal any clues. I can't attract 100 Herbs Gate's attention. No one can pay attention to me. After a while, everyone stopped in front of a small building. There was a stone tablet in front of the small building, and strange runes of unknown use were engraved on it. At the entrance of the small building, there was also a square signboard, and on it were 3 simple and unadorned words, Cloud Garden. Fellow Taoists, welcome to Tianqi. This Hua Yun Garden is one of Tianqi's properties in Jingbua City. I really used spirit stones to exchange for it. Fellow Taoists, please feel free to come here. It was rare for Qing Fengmin to be so relaxed and humorous, causing Han Fei and the others to smile. Ma Qingcheng smiled and said, "This is fellow Daoist Qing's hard work. As a loose cultivator, I really feel ashamed. Fellow Daoist Ma, you're too kind. As long as we persevere, we can achieve great things. Although we loose cultivators are weak individually, as long as we gather together, we're definitely a force to be reckoned with." Qing Fengmin cupped his hands and said with a smile, "Please, everyone, please Tilda Senior Qing, please go first." Han Fei and the others naturally declined out of courtesy. Qing Fengmin took the lead and left. Everyone entered one by one according to their cultivation level. Xiao Hua was naturally the last to enter. The small door of Hua Yun Garden didn't look big, but after entering, Xiao Hua understood that there was actually another world inside. In front of him was a rather large lotus pond. The pond was filled with sparkling lotus leaves, and dozens of blooming lotus flowers were facing the sun, incomparably enchanting. Looking at the side of the lotus pond, there were several lofts. The front of each loft was faintly glowing. It seemed that one could only enter with a yellow talisman. Along the front of the loft, there was also a path made of bluestone, extending to the back of the lotus pond. Inside the pavilion, by the lotus pond, there were a few rogue cultivators dressed in different attire. Some were leisurely, some were in a hurry. However, they were all around the 5th level of qi refining. When they saw Qing Fengmin, they all smiled and bowed respectfully. The cultivators who had followed Qing Fengmin entered the Huayun Park. After greeting Qing Fengmin, they went their separate ways, presumably having their own matters to attend to. As for Han Fei and Xiao Fengyu, a 4th-layer qi refining loose cultivator called Zhong Zhihao greeted them and led them to the nearest pavilion. After waiting for the number of people to decrease, Xiao Hua followed Ma Qingcheng to a loft. Ma Qingcheng smiled and said, "Fellow Daoist Xiao, this way please." As he spoke, he slapped his storage pouch and stuck a yellow talisman on the door of the pavilion. The door opened with a creak. "Senior, please." Xiao Hua tactfully walked behind Ma Qingcheng. Ma Qingcheng wasn't polite and led Xiao Hua into the pavilion. This pavilion was also extremely large. Xiao Hua glanced at it and saw that it was almost half the size of Shong Hua Ming's main hall. He couldn't help but mutter in his heart, "This is probably some kind of magic technique, right? This small 2-story building might have a very large courtyard behind it, but this pavilion, how could it have such a large space?" Seemingly understanding Xiao Hua's thoughts, Ma Qingcheng smiled and waved his hand, saying, "Fellow Daoist Xiao, please sit." A profound spatial magic technique was used to enlarge the cramped space. If it was your first time seeing it, I'm afraid you wouldn't understand. Spatial magic technique? Xiao Hua stared blankly and said curiously, "It sounds like an amazing magic technique. Fellow Daoist Xiao, please sit down and explain in detail." Ma Qingcheng knew that if Xiao Hua entered the heaven-forsaken realm, he would have the identity of a talisman master. Perhaps he would have something to rely on in the future, so he was especially polite. Xiao Hua naturally also knew, but he was still a 2nd-layer qi refinement cultivator after all, so he didn't dare to belittle himself. He only cupped his hands modestly and said, "Senior, please." Ma Qingcheng sat down with a smile and pointed at the small white fruit on the table beside him, saying, "This is a specialty from the bottom of Jinghua City's lake, the white kernel fruit. It's very refreshing and has quite the detoxification effect. Fellow Daoist might as well try it." "Thank you, Senior." Xiao Hua nodded and also sat down. He picked up one and threw it into his mouth. This white kernel fruit wasn't like other spirit fruits. It was unexpectedly hard. When he bit down, crunching sounds could be heard, and his mouth was filled with a fishy bitterness. This is also a specialty. Xiao Hua frowned as he ate. However, when he swallowed the white kernel fruit, a fine stream of clear energy rose and gradually spread to his limbs and meridians, causing his mind to become much clearer. "Haha, fellow Daoist Xiao is indeed amazing. When I ate the white kernel fruit that day, I directly spat it out. I didn't expect." Fellow Daoist only frowned. Ma Qingcheng clapped his hands and said. Xiao Hua didn't bat an eyelid and replied, How can Junior spit out what Senior bestowed? That's right. The one who received I that day was also a fellow Daoist at the 4th layer of Qi refining. I didn't have any misgivings. Ma Ching-cheng nodded slightly and looked around. He pointed with his finger and said, "Space magic is a magic treasure. It can change or increase or decrease the size of space. Only seniors at nascent soul stage and above have the magic power to cast it. I have only heard of it, so even if I wanted to talk about it in detail, I wouldn't be able to. However, most of the space magic in Jingbua City borrow the power of the Great Purifying Heart Formation to cast it. With Jingbua City's City Lord Liu's status, it's impossible for him to personally cast it." Xiao Hua nodded as if he understood. After thinking for a moment, he respectfully asked, "Junior has learned very little and doesn't know many things. There are many things that I would like to ask Senior for advice on." It's fine. Looking at fellow Daoist Qing's appearance, he also wants you to enter my Heaven's Forsaken sect. As long as you enter the Heaven's Forsaken sect, we rogue cultivators should naturally support each other. If fellow Daoist has any questions, I will do my best to answer them. However, at this time, as long as it doesn't involve the Heaven's Forsaken sect, even if it's a question in cultivation, I can help you resolve it," Ma Ching-cheng said with a smile. "Thank you." Senior Tilda Xiao Hua cupped his hands and said, "Junior has 2 areas that I don't understand. They don't involve the Heaven's Forsaken sect, so I hope Senior can enlighten me." Please speak. Tilda. Just now, when Junior followed Senior into the city, we met 2 golden core stage seniors, but Junior couldn't see through the cultivation of these 2 seniors. Some ordinary detection magic didn't work. Why is this? Xiao Hua said respectfully. Ha, so fellow Daoist Xiao is asking about this. Ma Ching-cheng said with a bit of surprise, "This is actually very simple. These 2 golden core stage seniors have a cultivation technique that conceals their cultivation. Not to mention that fellow Daoist is only at the 2nd level of the Qi refining stage and doesn't have divine sense. Even if a foundation establishment stage or golden core stage cultivator were to use their divine sense, they might not be able to see through it. Only seniors whose cultivation is higher than these 2 golden core stage seniors by 2 levels or more can use their divine sense to see through their true strength. A cultivation technique that conceals their cultivation?" Xiao Hua's heart stirred and he asked, "These cultivation techniques, why are they so mystical?" Yes, there are all kinds of strange things in the cultivation world. What kind of cultivation techniques don't they have? This cultivation technique isn't anything special. Many people know it. The only difference is the profoundness of the cultivation technique. I heard that the most profound cultivation technique is 4 or 5 levels higher than the other person's cultivation," Ma Ching-cheng said without any hint of envy. Thank you Senior for your guidance. Junior's second question is. Xiao Hua hesitated and asked, "This Jingbua City's City Lord Liu and Old Man Mu Qiong are both mid-nascent soul stage seniors. The disciples who guard Jingbua City are also at the 10th level of the Qi refining stage. Which sect in our country of Qi does this Jingbua City belong to?" Hissed Tilda. Hearing Xiao Hua's question, Ma Ching-cheng sucked in a breath of cold air. He looked Xiao Hua up and down and asked curiously, "Fellow Daoist Xiao, why did you suddenly ask such a strange question?" Xiao Hua was startled and quickly got up. "Ayo, Senior Ma, did Junior ask a question that shouldn't be asked? It's Junior's first time seeing a nascent soul stage senior. My heart was moved and I also saw the peculiarity of Jingbua City. That's why I thought of asking. I don't know which other sect besides our country of Qi's 3 major sects has such great strength." "Oh, so that's how it is." Tilda. Ma Ching-cheng's face relaxed and he waved his hand. "Sit, fellow Daoist Xiao. This question is actually nothing. However, to talk about the City Lord of Jingbua City in Jingbua City, I always feel a little awkward. If it's difficult, Senior doesn't need to say it," Xiao Hua tactfully said. We'll talk about this matter in detail after we leave Jingbua City. Many people know the origins of the City Lord of Jingbua City. Just ask around and you'll find out." Ma Qingcheng didn't want to talk about this with Xiao Hua and casually said, I only want to tell you one thing. This city Lord Liu and old man Mu Qiong are not from any sect in our country of Shi. Ah! Xiao Hua was surprised. They're also rogue cultivators? Hihi, fellow Daoist Xiao is really ignorant. In our country of Shi's cultivation world, besides cultivation sects and rogue cultivators, are there no other people? Cultivation family? Cultivation family? Xiao Hua suddenly realized. Hihi, more or less. Ma Qingcheng obviously didn't want to talk about it in detail. What does more or less mean? Xiao Hua muttered, they shouldn't be from a cultivation family. However, after thinking for a moment, Xiao Hua's heart moved and he asked again, that's right, Senior Ma, previously Senior said that in Yi City, there are some blank communication talismans. As long as you inject a trace of your own magic power, it will become your own communication talisman. How is it refined? Oh, about this, each sect has different refining methods. Just take those simple refining methods that I taught you just now. Ma Qingcheng saw that Xiao Hua was tactful and was very willing to tell Xiao Hua some details that didn't need to be kept secret. Xiao Hua listened and was secretly happy. Hey, it's just as I expected. It should be like this. But immediately, he came to a realization, this kind of secret technique, I, a cultivator who has never refined a communication talisman before, how can I know at a glance? -5. Chapter 1296. After Ma Qingcheng finished speaking, Xiao Hua smiled wryly. Senior, this method sounds simple, but it's not easy to do. It's far more difficult than refining a message talisman for yourself. That's natural. Refining a message talisman yourself and combining it with the talisman paper is enough to achieve your goal. If you refine a blank message talisman, not only do you have to restrain your magic power and not leave any traces of yourself in the message talisman, you also have to leave out the key areas that control the message talisman and wait for new magic power. If you haven't practiced talisman crafting for several years, it's absolutely impossible to complete this technique. Ma Qingcheng should have also tried it, as he said with great experience. Otherwise, if we rogue cultivators can all refine blank yellow talismans, how will those talisman shops in Jinghua City survive? How will those alchemy and talisman crafting sects like the Black Pill sect and Huangdao sect survive? Junior understands. Xiao Hua was about to stand up and give his thanks when he saw Ma Qingcheng turn his face slightly and say with a smile, fellow Daoist Qing has come. Fellow Daoist Xiao's matter has been settled. Sure enough, a brilliance flashed at the hall's door, and Qing Fengmin walked in with slightly furrowed brows. Seeing Qing Fengmin's face devoid of joy, Xiao Hua's heart thumped. He was both disappointed and faintly relaxed. Fellow Daoist Xiao, I've been waiting for a long time, Qing Fengmin said as he walked. I dare not. I've troubled Senior. Xiao Hua hurriedly stood up. Fellow Daoist Qing, the matter seems not to be going well. Ma Qingcheng said curiously, in the past. I have also seen talisman crafters join my heaven forsaken. It seems to be very easy. Fellow Daoist Ma is extremely right. My heaven forsaken has always welcomed rogue cultivators who can refine pills and craft talismans to join. Moreover, there are generous rewards and relaxing environments. It's just that. Fellow Daoist Xiao's cultivation is truly too far apart from a talisman crafter's identity. Moreover, you only have the talent for talisman crafting, but you don't truly understand talisman crafting. Therefore, if you want to join my heaven forsaken without taking out your own cultivation technique, you must have 3 or more talisman crafters jointly appraise you to see if you really have the potential to develop. Qing Fengmin slightly nodded, shortly after, a bitter smile. But just now, I searched around Cloud Park and didn't even find a single talisman crafter. Alas, I have to say that fellow Daoist Xiao's luck is truly terrible. Then, what should we do? Xiao Hua's face showed great anxiety. Don't worry, Qing Fengmin said with a smile, it's just a matter of time, and it may not be a bad thing for fellow Daoist Xiao. Fellow Daoist Qing, what do you mean? Ma Ching-cheng asked curiously. Didn't fellow Daoist Ma say it already? This is fellow Daoist Xiao's first time refining a yellow talisman. The longer Tian Qi's inspection, the more fellow Daoist Xiao can practice, right? Qing Fengmin said with a smile. Ha ha ha, that's exactly the case. Great. Ma Ching-cheng clapped and laughed heartily. He patted Xiao Hua's shoulder and said, how is fellow Daoist Xiao's luck bad? It's simply great luck. Xiao Hua rubbed his nose, not knowing how to answer. Qing Fengmin took out an extremely thin booklet from his bosom and handed it over, saying, fellow Daoist Xiao, this is a booklet that records the refining method of the fireball talisman. It's something that I obtained by chance. If fellow Daoist wants to join my Tian Qi, I'm afraid that the communication talisman won't pass the inspection of the talisman masters. You'd better comprehend this fireball talisman as much as possible. If you can refine the fireball talisman when fellow Daoist Ma sends you a message, even if you can't pass the inspection of the 3 talisman masters, I will still think of a way to let you join my Tian Qi. This. Xiao Hua's heart was moved. Looking at the booklet in front of him, he didn't know whether he should accept it or not. Take it. Ma Ching-cheng said with a smile, in the future, when fellow Daoist Xiao joins my Tian Qi, you can get closer to fellow Daoist Qing. Don't let down fellow Daoist Qing's painstaking efforts today. He, fellow Daoist Xiao doesn't need to think too much. This is the simplest method to refine a fireball talisman. It can't be considered rare. You can exchange it for only a few mid-grade spirit stones on the market. Moreover, after fellow Daoist Xiao finishes looking at it, you can return it to I. Qing Fengmin said with a chuckle. Then, many thanks, senior. Xiao Hua didn't stand on ceremony. He reached out and received it. After flipping through it a few times, he put it away. Seeing Xiao Hua accept it without any trace of politeness, Qing Fengmin's face revealed an even gentler smile. There's one more thing that I have to ask fellow Daoist Xiao to bear with. Xiao Hua stared blankly. Please instruct me, senior. Because fellow Daoist Xiao hasn't joined my Tian Qi for the time being, fellow Daoist can't stay in my Hua Yun Park like fellow Daoist Han and fellow Daoist Xiao. You can only wait outside Hua Yun Park and wait for fellow Daoist Ma's message. Qing Fengmin said with extreme embarrassment. Ayo, so it's like this. Xiao Hua promptly said with a smile, no matter. Junior will leave right now. I'll first go to Jingpa City to take a look and wait for Senior Ma's message. Qing Fengmin glanced at Ma Ching-cheng and said with a wry smile, if it were that simple, I wouldn't be in such a difficult situation. Ma Ching-cheng agreed, cultivators aren't allowed to stay outside Jingpa City at night. Unless they want to stay overnight, everyone else has to leave Jingpa City. Fellow Daoist Xiao's cultivation is low. There are Jingpa City guards in Jingpa City, so no one will find trouble with fellow Daoist Xiao. However, it's hard to say when you leave Jingpa City, therefore, fellow Daoist Xiao can only stay overnight in Jingpa City's inn. Qing Fengmin said, I wonder if fellow Daoist Xiao has any spirit stones on him? No, not a single one. Xiao Hua shook his head like a rattledrum. Ian, I also feel that fellow Daoist Xiao doesn't have the ability. As he spoke, Qing Fengmin took out a spirit stone from his storage bag and said with a smile, the inns in Jingpa City are more expensive. Fellow Daoist, please accept this mid-grade spirit stone and find a slightly more simple in outside Hua Yun Park. It should be able to support you for a period of time. Mid-grade spirit stone? When Xiao Hua heard this, his eyes unconsciously stared at Qing Fengmin's hand. He had seen spirit stones in Shanghua Ming, but he had never asked about their quality. Although he didn't have any spirit stones on him, didn't the puppet in his mind space have one? When he glanced at it, he already knew that he should also have a mid-grade spirit stone. He also hurriedly declined, no need, senior. You've already done so much for this junior. This junior really has no way to repay you. If I accept another spirit stone from you, this junior really doesn't have the face to do so. No need to be polite, fellow Daoist Xiao. This can be considered a loan from I to you. When you have more spirit stones, you can return it to I. Qing Fengmin still placed the spirit stone in front of Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua's eyes narrowed as he stared at the spirit stone. In fact, he really didn't want to accept it. Previously, he had already taken a fireball talisman from Qing Fengmin, so he owed him a favor. If he accepted the spirit stone again, he wouldn't know how to repay this favor in the future. Fellow Daoist Xiao, why are you so stubborn? Ma Qingcheng said with a smile. Fellow Daoist Qing also has good intentions. Xiao Hua's heart moved. Just now, outside Jinghua City, he was still thinking about how not to attract the attention of others. Why was he so foolish now? Being a maverick was admittedly an elegant conduct and not asking for help from others, but it also indirectly distinguished himself from ordinary people. For the current Xiao Hua, this was really unwise. Xiao Hua understood and immediately reached out with a smile. Many thanks for Senior Qing's understanding. This junior will accept this spirit stone for the time being. When there is a chance in the future, I will definitely repay Senior. Ha 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 tilde no matter, no matter. When you enter my heaven forsaken in the future, you will be an ordinary fellow Daoist. There will always be time and opportunity. Qing Fengmin laughed very happily, then cupped his hands and said, I still have some chores to take care of, so I won't accompany fellow Daoist. After a few days, I will have fellow Daoist Ma send a message to fellow Daoist Xiao. Fellow Daoist Xiao, please don't let I down. I don't dare. This junior will naturally do his best. Xiao Hua sent Qing Fengmin off with a smile, then said to Ma Qingcheng, this junior is not a member of Heaven Forsaken. This Hua Yun court is indeed not suitable for staying for long. This junior will take his leave now. Yen, that's good too tilde fellow Daoist Xiao, temporarily stay outside for a few days. I urge fellow Daoist Qing to quickly take care of fellow Daoist Xiao's matter, Qing Fengmin said with a smile. After leaving Hua Yun court, Ma Qingcheng looked left and right, then pointed to the southwest and said, fellow Daoist Xiao, I won't see you off. The inns in Jinghua City. Haha, there are different levels of wealth. In the southwest of Jinghua City, there are some slightly simple inns. Fellow Daoist can go take a look. Other places? It's fine if fellow Daoist doesn't go. Fellow Daoist should spend this mid-grade spirit stone sparingly. After all, this spirit stone is not easy for us rogue cultivators. Oh, so it's like this. May I ask, how many spirit stones does an ordinary inn cost per night? Xiao Hua had no experience in this area. It's not certain tilde some require one low-grade spirit stone, some require several, and some require one mid-grade spirit stone tilde Ma Qingcheng explained with a smile. Of course, there are even more outrageous ones. Liaoqing Court uses high-grade spirit stones to pay. If you want to go there, I'm afraid fellow Daoist Qing will need to give you 100 mid-grade spirit stones. Xiao Hua smiled and didn't say anything else. He cupped his hands and bid farewell to Ma Qingcheng. After seeing Ma Qingcheng enter Hua Yun Court, Xiao Hua turned around and headed southwest. After he walked far away, in front of Hua Yun Court's entrance, several rogue cultivators went in and out as usual without any abnormalities. Xiao Hua had also walked very far away. He found an opportunity to slightly turn his body. Seeing that there wasn't anything unusual behind him, he sped up his footsteps, turned around, and entered another main street. After identifying his left and right, he quickly walked towards the shop that sold yellow talismans that he had previously passed by. Although Xiao Hua's sense of direction was extremely poor, the roads in Jinghua City were easy to find. It didn't take long for Xiao Hua to find this shabby shop with the word talisman written on it. In the shop, the old man was still sleeping with his head lowered. Xiao Hua looked around and saw that there weren't any miscellaneous people. Just as he was about to enter, a strange cultivator wearing a cloak that covered his entire head suddenly walked out of a nearby shop and walked straight towards Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua very naturally stopped in his tracks. After looking around a few times, he unconsciously frowned and quietly retreated a few steps to get out of the way. That person's pace was very fast. In large strides, he arrived in front of Xiao Hua. The closer he got, the deeper the doubts in Xiao Hua's heart. -5. Chapter 1297. When the cloaked cultivator walked to his side, Xiao Hua peeked curiously. That cloak was very peculiar, covering the cultivator from head to toe. Xiao Hua couldn't see anything inside the cloak, let alone the cultivator's face. He couldn't even sense the cultivator's cultivation level. Hey! Height can also be changed. Xiao Hua was flabbergasted. When that cultivator came out of the shop next door, Xiao Hua clearly felt that he was much shorter than him, but when he got closer, this person was almost the same height as him. Xiao Hua knew he was tall, half a head taller than the average person. If that person was the same height as him, there was no reason for him to look short just now. Oh, this is the cloak's effect. Xiao Hua suddenly realized. Right at this moment, perhaps because Xiao Hua had been staring at him for too long, the cultivator sensed something and slightly tilted his head under the cloak. Immediately, two cold gazes shot out like sharp swords. "Mph, a little fellow at the second level of chi condensation, what are you looking at? Be careful or I'll take your life." That voice was very hoarse and at the same time cold, as if this wasn't Jinghua City, Xiao Hua's life would be taken by him at any time. Xiao Hua shuddered and quickly lowered his head, saying repeatedly, "Senior, please calm down. Junior didn't do it on purpose, please calm down." That cultivator didn't say much. His footsteps were like moving clouds and flowing water, and his height also slowly changed. Not long after, he walked far away. Xiao Hua lowered his head and looked at that person from the corner of his eyes. He sighed and was about to raise his head when a voice rang out again. "Fellow Daoist." Xiao Hua jumped in fright. That voice was right next to his ear, and he almost jumped up. He hurriedly turned around and saw that the old man who was still dozing off just now had already woken up. He had a signature smile on his face and was quietly standing behind him. Senior Xiao Hua saw that the old man was already a fourth-layer chi refinement cultivator, so he didn't dare to be negligent and immediately cupped his hands in greeting. "I don't dare. Fellow Daoist, did you come to visit this small shop?" Even though the old man saw that Xiao Hua's cultivation was only at the second level of the chi refinement realm, he didn't dare to slight him. He put on a smile and said, "Fellow Daoist, don't underestimate this small shop. It's the only shop that my Fujian faction has set up in Jinghua City. Inside are all yellow talismans refined by the elders of my Fujian faction. I guarantee that they're genuine and cheap." Xiao Hua's forehead was slightly sweating. He was indeed not used to having a cultivator with a higher cultivation than him lowering his posture like this in front of him. "That. Senior, can Junior go in and take a look?" Xiao Hua probed. "Of course. Please, fellow Daoist, come in." The old man quickly got out of the way. However, he still looked at Xiao Hua strangely and smiled apologetically. "Fellow Daoist, there's no need to call me senior. My surname is Bai. Just call me fellow Daoist Bai." Xiao Hua nodded and said with a smile, "My surname is Xiao. Fellow Daoist Xiao, please come in." Xiao Hua first looked at some of the yellow talismans placed on the stalls around the shop. There were fireball talismans, earththorn talismans, ice seal talismans and other normal yellow talismans. There were also some yellow talismans that he had never seen before. However, these yellow talismans looked very crude and the runes on them were very shallow. Presumably, they were some low-level goods. After entering the shop, the space inside was actually very large. It was far from how cramped it looked from the outside. All kinds of strange yellow talismans were placed on the four walls of this space. There were about a dozen of each type of yellow talisman. They were quietly placed within the pale white brilliance on the walls. That brilliance reflected the appearance of the yellow talismans. Moreover, it was magnified by a lot. Xiao Hua didn't need to get very close to see it extremely clearly. Xiao Hua wasn't very proficient in yellow talismans. He just casually stood in front of a type of yellow talisman. Without waiting for him to carefully examine it, the old man immediately said with a smile, "Fellow Daoist Xiao, do you want to buy this Earth Escape talisman? Isn't this a yellow talisman unique to my Fujian faction?" "Earth Escape talisman?" Xiao Hua stared blankly and blurted out, "Earth Escape? Isn't that one of the 5 elements escape arts? Heh! When the old man heard this, he was clearly even more stunned than Xiao Hua. His expression froze for a moment, and then his smile became even wider. Oh my, fellow Daoist Xiao actually knows about the 5 elements escape arts. It seems like this old man's eyes were blind. I even thought that fellow Daoist was some wandering cultivator, so it turns out that you're a disciple of a famous sect. Xiao Hua's eyes turned, and he said with a slight smile, I wouldn't dare. I just occasionally heard my teacher mention it. I wonder if this Earth Escape Talisman. Oh, I'll let fellow Daoist Xiao know. This Earth Escape Talisman is still different from the legendary Earth Escape Talisman. The old man's face was a bit embarrassed. My faction's previous generation elder also incidentally obtained a remnant book of the Earth Escape art. Only then did he figure out this Earth Escape Talisman himself. It's Earth Escape Talisman and Earth Escape Talisman of other sects. The effect is about the same. Please dispel my confusion, fellow Daoist Bai. The legendary Earth Escape art can escape underground. As long as there's earth, it can be like a flying technique, unhindered and unhindered. It's said that the 5 Elements sect's true Earth Escape Talisman also has the effect of Earth Escape Talisman. It's just that the distance and depth are different. As the old man spoke, he stretched out his hand and took out the Earth Escape Talisman, and he handed it over to Xiao Hua. But my talisman Zhon sect's Earth Escape Talisman, because it's a remnant book of the Earth Escape art that they've comprehended, so it can only hide a cultivator's body underground. Within a radius of several tens of kilometers, the cultivator can move freely. But if the cultivator escapes too far, they can't. Of course, this Earth Escape Talisman of my sect has an advantage that others can't. It's able to conceal a cultivator's aura and pressure, guaranteeing that it won't be discovered by cultivators of the same realm. As Xiao Hua listened, he carefully examined the Earth Escape Talisman in his hand. This was an earthen yellow talisman, and its texture was extremely soft. When held in his hand, it was like silk. He only needed to use his hand to touch it, and he knew that this was absolutely not a yellow talisman that he'd seen in the past. On the yellow talisman, there were numerous talismans visible to the naked eye, and they were abnormally exquisite. Even though they hadn't reached the stage of being sentient, strands of spiritual energy were emitted from the talisman from time to time, indicating that this yellow talisman was also extremely rare. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. Who knew how many spirit stones this kind of yellow talisman would cost, so how could he afford it? Sure enough, that old man smiled again and said, even though this is a middle-grade yellow talisman, its effect is comparable to a high-grade one, and its price is only 1 middle-grade spirit stone. It's very cheap and good. If fellow Daoist Xiao were to buy it, you could use it to save your life in times of danger. Seeing that the old man's misunderstanding was gradually deepening, Xiao Hua didn't dare to look at it any longer and returned the Earth Escape Talisman to the old man. That old man was clearly somewhat disappointed. After returning the Earth Escape Talisman to its original place, he politely asked, fellow Daoist Xiao, what kind of yellow talisman do you want to look at? This. Fellow Daoist Bai, do you accept yellow talismans here? Xiao Hua thought for a moment, but still braced himself and said it. En. The old man's brows wrinkled, and the smile on his face gradually disappeared. Fellow Daoist Xiao, are you making fun of me? My Fu Zhon sect specializes in making yellow talismans, so how could we possibly go and buy other people's yellow talismans? So it's like that. Xiao Hua was somewhat embarrassed. Thinking about it, that's right. They originally specialized in making yellow talismans, so if you went to their shop to sell yellow talismans, wouldn't that be slapping their faces? Thinking that he couldn't come to their shop for nothing, Xiao Hua smiled apologetically and said, does fellow Daoist Bai have any fireball talismans here? En, the middle-grade fireball talismans are over there. The old man's face revealed a trace of a smile, and he used his hand to point in front of him. What about low-grade ones? Xiao Hua couldn't possibly buy a middle-grade fireball talisman. They're outside. The old man's attitude started to become cold. En. Xiao Hua responded and walked out first. His eyes looked around, and after searching once, his eyes suddenly lit up. Coincidentally, next to the low-grade fireball talisman, There really was a stack of blank messaging talisman. Xiao Hua ignored the old man and quickly walked over. He picked up the messaging talisman and carefully examined it. Upon seeing this, although the old man was somewhat disappointed, he still clenched his teeth and said, "Fellow Daoist Xiao, this messaging talisman is also a refined product of my Fuzhong sect. One low-grade spirit stone. This old man can make the decision and give you 100 of them. What do you think?" Xiao Hua didn't respond. He first carefully examined the messaging talisman paper, then looked at the talisman characters on it. Only then did he understand. He raised his head and said, "This kind of low-grade messaging talisman, I'm afraid it's not even comparable to a low-grade one. Fellow Daoist Bai actually wants such a high price. This." The old man was somewhat tongue-tied, but he didn't appear embarrassed in the slightest. He said, "Messaging talismans, these kinds of daily yellow talismans, are the most lowly. Generally, they're refined by themselves. Who would come to my shop to buy them? Only low-level cultivators, because their magic power is insufficient and they want to send messages over a long distance, they would come to buy them. Even if my sect refined high-grade messaging talismans, they would still need to have enough spirit stones." Xiao Hua nodded thoughtfully. He was somewhat dazed. When he passed by here earlier, he suddenly had an idea. He had some talisman paper and could refine messaging talismans. If he could use all of his magic power to refine messaging talismans, the quality of the messaging talismans he refined should be pretty good. If he could bring them here to sell, he would definitely be able to obtain some spirit stones. However, now it seemed that things weren't as simple as he thought. Soon after, Xiao Hua's gaze fell on the fireball talismans. Those fireball talismans were similar to messaging talismans and also appeared to be abnormally crude. Thus, he picked one up and asked, "What about this low-grade fireball talisman?" The old man said weakly, "If fellow Daoist Xiao is interested in buying, then one low-grade spirit stone for 10 talismans. Oh, 8 talismans. This is a special discount since it's fellow Daoist's first time here. En." Xiao Hua nodded and said with a smile, "Since it's a discount, then just make it 10. Why be so stingy?" The old man sighed, 10 talismans it is. This old man hates bargaining the most. I'll listen to you. Xiao Hua counted out 10 fireball talismans. Just as he was about to take out spirit stones from his bosom, he suddenly slapped his forehead and asked, "That's right, fellow Daoist Bai, what's the price of mid-grade and high-grade fireball talismans?" The old man's eyes lit up and he said with a smile, "Fellow Daoist Xiao, 10 low-grade spirit stones for a mid-grade fireball talisman. As for high-grade fireball talismans, they cost 50 to 100 low-grade spirit stones." "Ah, so expensive?" Xiao Hua actually didn't know whether it was expensive or not. He only said in astonishment, "It's not expensive, not expensive. Fellow Daoist Xiao doesn't know. Let's not talk about the power of the spiritual fire within this high-grade fireball talisman. Just the control of the spiritual fire and the difficulty of the technique are completely different from mid-grade spirit stones. Moreover, the greater the power of the spiritual fire and the easier it is to control, the more expensive it is. One mid-grade spirit stone is nothing." -5 You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,